Bob here. Bob's up in.
I'm here, ready.
So I'm gonna welcome you guys to the 2018-19 budget workshop with the Board of Selectmen, Warrant and Finance, department heads, committee chairs. Got Bob up next.
Are you ready for me?
We're ready. I think this is how it's going.
Yep.
Okay. Am I chairing the meeting?
Yes. If you want to follow along with Bob's budget, he's Department 10540 in the book. No, it's 10540.
Yellow tag.
So how do you want to do this, Elise? You want the department head just to kind of walk us through his increases and decreases and?
Yeah, sure.
You want me to do that, or do you want to do it?
Well, I think you know this better than I do.
What's that?
You know your budget.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll start at the top.
Okay.
Get a slight increase in wages. And you move down to 50360, I believe it is. Equipment and supplies, we just moved that line. We did away with that line and moved that down to equipment, which is 50710. So that's why that one increased by 500. And then the other increase was 50461, which is the MSW to Pine Tree. That increased by $897 because they go up $1 every year per ton. And we did 897 tons last year, so that's why that's 897. And I found some money in the MSW hauling, so I took out $3,000. And we got to that point just by rearranging the loads and when the loads went out. And then, of course, you go to the very bottom on the hazardous waste, and we took that out because that's just a one-year stint. So that came out of it. So we're actually $858 less than we would have been last year if we hadn't had the hazardous waste in there.
Okay, this looks good. So are you getting rid of the equipment supply line altogether?
Yes,
Okay,
that's,
so next year that won't show
that
up.
line just, that's getting eliminated, and the money got moved down to the 50710 line.
Okay.
And while we're on the topic of the transfer station, I just want to point out there is a special project that is proposed for this year for paving the parking lot. They're good.
Yeah, on a special article.
Right.
Yeah.
We do have quotes from 3 different companies that we've gotten, or 2 different companies.
different companies.
One chose not to, but we do have quotes that we'll present when you guys get the copies of the warrant, so you can review the actual quotes
The
as well.
quotes are actually in the book right behind the budget.
You probably can't talk about the quotes yet, since they haven't been awarded, or is that how much they are, can you?
And actually, Michelle and I didn't talk a lot yesterday, but let me look at Pikes, because I got an email from Pike. Did you speak to someone recently?
Yeah, I spoke to Blair about that, because he missed one
Missed a portion
one
of it.
section of it, so he had to redo it.
So, we'll make a note of this. Late yesterday, Pike sent me an updated quote on this, which I will get over to you guys, but I can tell you what it is. You can actually just put the line through it. Did he tell you what portion he missed?
Yeah, it was the portion going down to the compactor.
Let's see, right here.
The ramp,
Yeah,
the ramp underneath.
with that whole, goes down along the backside of that cement wall.
Is that all paved now? I thought that was on concrete. Oh,
No.
it's just on
It's all
concrete where it
concrete where the
rolls
can
on-
sets,
Where
yeah.
it rolls on and off, right? Yeah, okay, yeah.
So if you want to, on your bid for Pike, just write this down. I won't have to send it to you. The increased price as of late yesterday was $62,210. So $59,984 is getting changed to $62,210. And at the top, he's got a note, Bob, that says revised for entrance to dumpster per Mr. Mann, so.
Where, that's in the back here somewhere?
Right behind.
Right behind the transfer station budget.
Oh, I'm sorry, right behind the transfer station. No wonder I can't find it. Okay.
So you have his actual budget and then the worksheets that he actually did, and then the quotes are behind that.
Mr. Mann?
Yes.
Looking to the future, are there any pieces of equipment or any new technology that you want to consider in the future as far as the transfer station? That department works so extremely well, but I'm sure that there are perhaps new technologies coming on board that you're aware of. Is there anything in the future that you see?
Well, it all depends on what happens to all this commodity stuff that China's been buying from us with the plastics and stuff, and you know what, we've got a plastic compactor out there, which we used to get rid of for nothing, and now they're charging us $35 a ton to take the stuff off. You know, some of that stuff may change, but there's nothing in the pipeline right now that would make that that we're gonna need new equipment or whatever to change.
Jen, was Pike's the only one that actually changed, or all the rest of them remain the same?
Yeah, Dayton stays the same, and, who was the third company we reached out to?
Another third
It was
company?
F.R. Carroll.
FR Carroll,
Yeah.
and they didn't have any interest in coming out and looking at it or bidding on it.
Carol did? Really? Oh, that's too bad. Could you give me that number again for Pike?
62,210.
210.
Okay, thank you.
Are we definitely going to have a hazardous waste day this year?
Yeah, it's gonna happen on the 28th, Nancy,
The 28th?
28th of April,
April 28th. Wonderful.
from 9 to 12.
That's long
It's a
overdue.
residential hazardous waste day. We're gonna have a flyer, Jennifer's getting the flyer printed up for us. And I'll mention it now, since there's so many people here, that, as far as the hazardous waste goes, all your paints and stuff that you have at your house, you know, Thompson's Water Seal and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
All that stuff can be taken down to Sherwin-Williams or Springville Hardware and dropped off at no cost, so we won't be taking paints during hazardous waste day, because it can be gotten rid of for free.
Okay. And now I know that formerly with our contract, we got some help with the cost of that.
yeah.
And this includes that?
Pine Tree is gonna pay for half.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So actually, that $5,000 is the town's portion.
Yep.
And let's say we spent $5,000 in the town, of $10,000, Pine Tree's gonna pay the other $5,000.
Wonderful.
But that's out of this year's budget. It doesn't have anything to do with, it's not in next year's, it's in this year's.
It's not in next year's, that's just the previous year that money's coming out.
Can you drop off paints and chemicals at Sherwin-Williams anytime or just on this day?
No, anytime.
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 Just
Thank you.
paints and stuff, you can't take hazardous waste to them, but you can take all your paints and stuff anytime to Sherwin-Williams and drop it off.
Mr. Mann, you've mentioned some nice things with Pine Tree. Is there any negatives as far as Pine Tree are concerned?
No, I find none.
And is there any newer, perhaps greener options other than Pine Tree in the future?
Well, we're locked into Pine Tree till 2025,
Till 2025?
yeah,
So that's a moot point.
you're right.
And that's with the union of how many towns around us that also have agreed with that?
I don't know the other towns that
Like 10 or
in that,
something like
in
that?
that plan. Some of them go with
Twelve.
Eco Maine.
Okay. 12 towns,
Approximately.
okay.
What was the date again, Bob? I didn't get that.
April 28th.
28th, okay, that's what I
And
thought.
that's
but I
next
wasn't sure.
year?
No, that's this
Oh,
year.
it's coming.
That money's
That
already
was-
been appropriated.
That was put in last year's budget
Oh, already.
for this year that we're in now.
So, I'm sorry, what does the hazardous waste consist of? I realize now it's not paint, you can drop it off.
Jennifer,
Well,
I'm sorry.
All the type
We're here to
of,
talk about the budget. So he's got the information going to Jennifer on a flyer, and that'll be out soon. Sorry.
it's okay.
I just don't want to get off track.
No,
Do
it's
we have
good.
any more
Yeah.
budget questions?
Thank you.
And I'm going to assume that, I think I just did the math correctly, the increase in the wage line is the 1.5%.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, if I can go back to your equipment supply and equipment lines, what's the difference between the two, and why are we making?
Equipment supply at the top and the equipment down below. We just combine those two because they're pretty much the same thing. You know, the equipment line below would be things like skid steer, if we needed tires for the skid steer, maintenance on the skid steer, and diesel fuel. And in the equipment supply, we used to put our, like our gloves that we use, any bags that we use for recycling stuff used to go in there. So we just moved it all down to
So
equipment.
these are basically operating expenses?
Yeah,
what
right,
you're
right,
telling me.
exactly. Yeah.
They're to be operating expenses.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, okay.
correct.
I just want to say, Bob, I think you do a great job with the budget.
Well, thank you.
You-
Appreciate
Great,
that.
and a
I
great
mean-
job at the transfer station.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So does that mean I can leave now?
If there's no further questions,
No, you don't stay here till the next person shows up.
No, please.
You're good, they're here.
No cable is here.
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye,
Have a
Bob.
good day.
Oh, Mike's here, yeah.
Bye, Bob.
See you later. Thank you, Robert.
Mike Corey, who is with APAT, is Department 111 in your book.
Choice of
Do you have anything important to say about your budget?
Not really. Trying to keep it pretty flat. A mild increase in salary and decreases in other lines with a less than 0.5% increase overall.
Okay. The decrease in the telephone is because we switched carriers?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. You don't have too many lines to look at.
How many do you actually have employed with you?
2.
Are you looking to get more or just?
I've tried. It's hard. It's
Yeah,
slim
it's hard.
pickings. We
Not
reached
easy.
out to the school even, and little to no response.
What about, I don't know if they can or can't, what about like a high school volunteer?
Well, that's who we initially reached out to, was Sanford High School, the students of Acton who go to
Yeah.
Sanford. But we had little to no
Yeah,
responses
it's
from
not,
them.
it's not easy.
And there is a constant ad running on the station promoting, if anybody's, interested in assisting, to contact us.
Well, unfortunately, I don't get it, so it's,
Most viewers watch this stuff on YouTube.
that's what I do.
I'm just gonna repeat what Mike said. If you do not get channel, is it 26?
Yes.
You can watch the videos on, if you go to the town website, there's an APAT link on the left, and that brings you up, the YouTube channel, and all the meetings are there, so don't
Since
feel left out.
2011, I think.
What do you normally start a person that, if they don't know anything about it, at?
It's a stipend position, so
What is it?
it's $50 per event.
Okay.
And in most circumstances, any events over 3 hours is a double stipend. And on average, we range anywhere between 6,000 annually to 8,000. So my labor cost on my line is what includes the stipend position. Which I believe this year is at 8,000 in case of any additional events that may come up. Yes. And one of my other employees also does video editing to help support the production process. That is an hourly wage at $20 an hour. And there is enough in there to do at least one video edit a week, because he usually does the selectmen's meetings.
Well, if we apparently MetroCast is going to be switched, does that have any impact on you?
It actually does. Thanks for pointing that out. We are in negotiations with our franchise agreement, and we're allotted to do anywhere from 0 to 5% on the MetroCast bill. MetroCast is being bought out by Atlantic Broadband.
It already shows up in my email.
It does, yes. Their name's already being put all over the place, in the place of MetroCast. In order to maintain our existing infrastructure, I propose that we decreased the franchise agreement to 4.5%.
It's an asterisk.
And that drops our anticipated revenue from MetroCast to pay the bills to 35,000 roughly. Before it was 40,000 and change.
I have a question. On the department head, is that just salary, or is it salary and benefits? That line?
There's separate lines, for, looks like, for Social Security. There are no benefits. It's just salary. But there's separate lines for Social Security and Medicaid taxes. But yeah, that is just strictly salary.
Okay.
Well, nobody else is raising questions, so I'm going to just border the topic a little bit with respect to the quality of service we are getting on the internet these days. Many of us have noticed, and I'm sure you have too, that the quality of the service is deteriorating and deteriorating very rapidly. Jennifer and
We
I
did
had
have a
discussion
meeting
about
with
this.
the guy from MetroCast. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but he was really friendly, and he actually gave his direct phone number if you have issues to call him directly, and
That's fine. The server, I don't know about you, but I'm getting letters from my banks and brokers telling me that they can't contact me. They're trying to contact me, that stuff is getting kicked back. I called MetroCast. Well, you'll have to provide me your IP address for whoever you're trying to communicate with. Who's going to give me their IP address? A bank? No, that's not going to happen. Okay? So there's a problem here, and,
I guess I'm confused on what your issue is. Maybe Mike
Not a budget issue.
okay,
was
well,
talking about?
This doesn't pertain to the franchise agreement, but
No, it doesn't.
hopefully
That's
with
why
Atlantic
that-
Broadband's overtake, they said they plan on engineering their infrastructure, and hopefully those issues, because I watched the video when MetroCast's representative was here, and I did hear a lot of complaints about internet quality and support and service pertaining to the internet. So hopefully Atlantic Broadband's, takeover and infrastructure changes will help those issues, but that has nothing to do with,
no, I
And with that
understand- I
answered,
understand that.
I'm just gonna
I'm-
remind that we're gonna stay on budget topics.
Right,
If there's other issues with
Correct.
the cable, it needs to be brought up elsewhere.
Mr. Cora, do you foresee any change in our connections with YouTube? For example, Steemit or other similar ilk?
not likely. It takes a lot of time and energy to take what I currently had archived and put it onto YouTube since, I believe, 2011. YouTube being a free source, it was just a convenient and just simple way to get the communication out easier. I know there are other solutions, and I know YouTube does have the Google name on it, which
Correct.
implements advertisements and data digging, as we've seen about Facebook. But I have no ambitions to migrate away from YouTube at this point.
Thank you.
Mike, what is your average time about getting videos online?
2 days. Well, my average time is usually a day and a half
Okay.
of actual production, but I think we have a guarantee into 3 days. So once this meeting is over, I'm at least required to get it on within 3 days, but I usually get it on in a day and a half.
Okay, thank you. And Tom, to answer your questions on YouTube, look at it.
I know, that's usually where I get it.
If there's no further questions regarding the budget with Michael, we'll let him go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cora.
Next up is the
Rescue.
fire and rescue at 9:30.
He's on his way, I told him. He's on his way over.
Sure. It is Department.
number, Michelle?
Right here.
1043.
403.
Thank you.
Keep the tab. Jeez.
Goodness, I'm glad we missed that street. Actually, they're Heather's.
Like this on the fire says chief salary, other salaries, but Mike doesn't use the same nomenclature. He says labor, something like that. Wouldn't it be better if they all use the same terms?
Well, they're,
No, I don't have
I have to.
are, they're not salaries, they're,
I am
they're
special,
more of a
and I'll be the
stipend.
first to admit to it.
So even if it says staff, labor to me means manual labor.
The numbers that connect to the departments, so they're all the same, so,
Yeah.
like, depending on the account number is how
Adaptation.
it shows up in our budget
I
book,
expect
so in our actual budget, so the fire department
I'm gonna jump up.
will actually show up
I expect you to
as,
help out.
She's just saying these words right here.
yeah, and that was just more for, to, so that you know what, you could decipher which line was which line. Like we have, because they have several different employee lines in fire and rescue. They have department head wages, supervisory wages, which is the officer's salaries, stipends, that's your quarterly stipends, and then you have a full-time medic, and then you have your per diem.
Transfer station uses the term labor,
Right.
Uses what?
labor.
Oh, labor, yeah.
To me, it would be clearer if it said staff or something to indicate that it's money,
Are you
Not-
hear, are you hearing,
manual labor and hourly
Right.
labor rate.
she's hearing like contract?
Well, I haven't passed that.
I'm sorry?
You're thinking of like somebody who's come in for contracted work when you see labor?
I think depending on the area, it could mean, it could have various definitions. But when you say
Good morning.
salary or staff, yeah, staff is dollars and cents.
Okay,
I left
we,
you a copy up there, did you see?
Okay, thanks.
we have Chief Johnson up next with the fire rescue. He's almost about 10 minutes early. So, we're having the department heads go through, pointing out any big numbers or little numbers or any changes, if you want to
Sure.
just walk us through your budget.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. So first of all, just real quick, operationally, we really didn't have a whole lot of increases on the operational budget. Just a few areas where we find that we were on the verge of either running over or had run over. So we increased a couple of the lines. Basically, the lines we increased are actually reflecting the increase in busyness that we've seen as a department as our call volume's gone up 20 to 30% each year since I've been here. So we've been getting busier and called on a lot more. So as far as the capital lines, I put in for $85,000 for a utility truck replacing our 26-year-old squad truck that we have now. And actually, this one utility truck is replacing two trucks. If you'll remember, our old Forestry 1 truck went out of service, wouldn't pass inspection, and we ended up selling it last year. So the one that we have now, our squad truck, which is 26 years old, carries our specialty rescue equipment, Stokes basket, things like that, and is utilized also to tow our trailer with our ATV and things of that nature. The truck that we spec'd is an F550 crew cab, which means it's got the rear seat, the 4 doors, because we use it to transport manpower a lot as well, so we need it for that capacity. And I spec'd it with a utility body, an aluminum utility body. What the purpose of that would be is obviously this is going to be a truck that's going to be a 20-year vehicle for us. that's the goal, is to get 20 years out of it. And we also spec'd it so that it has the compartments on the sides, but it's open in the middle, so it can be utilized somewhat as like a pickup truck as well, but also for down the road, should something happen to the forestry truck we have now, it would be a lot cheaper to buy like a skid unit for, say, $10,000 or so to put into this utility truck, that we could use this as a forestry truck, as opposed to having to buy an entire another forestry truck. So it's kind of multi-purpose, and it's spec'd with the future in mind, trying to get 20 years out of it, as well as should the needs of the vehicle change. We're spec'ing the 550 versus the 350 because the Squad we have now is only a regular cab. And when we weighed it, we brought it over to weigh it, it's almost 11,000 pounds. In the GVWR, the vehicle rated weight, that vehicle is only 10,000. The new 350s are rated at 14,000 GVWR, but where we're already at 11,000 with the regular cab, you add on the crew cab, now you're probably going to be 12,000 pounds. And then you throw in, if we decide to use a skid unit for it, that's a few thousand pounds. That would put us over the rating of what a 350 could be. So down the road, if we want to use that as a forestry, should our big forestry break down or have to get rid of it, then we wouldn't be able to accommodate the needs that we need that vehicle to be. But if we spec it at the 550 versus the 350, yeah, the heavier suspension, so the longevity of the vehicle is going to be better, especially with the roads we go down and that we use. So, in speaking with like the utility truck apparatus makers as well as the mechanics, they all agree for the longevity of the vehicle, you're way better off with the 550 versus the 350, just because of the heavier suspension, if anything else. And again, should our needs of the vehicle change, we have the extra capacity to put, such as, forestry skid unit in it. Eventually, we're going to need to get another set of extrication tools, but we'd like to try to keep the ones we have as a backup, but we'd end up putting those on the utility as well. So, yes, Tom?
Chief, there's been a lot of selling and buying and stuff.
Yep.
But could you just real quickly give us an overview of the rolling stock that we presently have at the
Sure.
fire station?
Yep. We currently have a 1985 tanker truck, 3,000 gallon tanker with a 1,500 gallon pump. We have a 2003 Peterbilt E1/E1 pumper with a 1,000 gallon tank and 1250 pump. We have a 2013 Spartan engine with a 1,000 gallon tank, 1,500 pump. We have the, 1992 squad truck. We also have the 2017 ambulance, new ambulance that we have. We have the UTV, which I think is a 2012 UTV, which is also set up as a patient transport for in and out of the woods. Has tracks that we put on it for the winter with a trailer. And then we have a small 12-foot aluminum boat, which really doesn't, at this point, isn't serving any function or purpose that we can really use.
The UTV is what year?
I think it's a 2012, I'm pretty sure. Yes.
This new truck, can you give a couple of examples of how and where you would use it?
The truck?
The new one?
The utility? Yep.
The one that you're proposing?
That's utilized to tow the ATV that we have, UTV that we have in that trailer. It carries all our water rescue, ice rescue equipment, so we use it for any water or ice rescue. It would be used, like when you have a fire and you have all the hose to bring back to clean, it would be used to transport the hose in the back of it as well to bring it back to clean. Eventually, I'd like to get another set of extrication tools, for vehicle extrications. Those would be on that as well. I also spec'd it, in the spec is also spec'd with a plow on it, and which is pretty much the trend of the way everybody's going, because it's so hard to coordinate necessarily with your road commissioners or getting somebody to do the scene in the winter to plow a driveway if we need to get access to a building, things like that. So it would be utilized for that function as well.
Okay, you also mentioned a skid unit. What is that?
So a skid unit is, it's a unit that's set up, would have, for instance, like a 250 or 300 gallon water tank in it, would have forestry equipment, forestry pump, forestry hose reels, and it's a unit that's set up that that just slides into the back of the vehicle, into the back of the pickup body, well, in between, in the center, that open center, to turn, basically to turn a pickup truck into a forestry truck. And those are, depending on what you get, anywhere from, say, $10,000, $12,000. So,
If I understand it, the skid unit is for forestry fires primarily.
Correct,
Is that
yep.
correct? We do not have one at the present time.
we do not, and I don't plan on purchasing one at this point, just because of the fact we have the forestry, oh yes, we have the other forestry truck, which is that big, forestry too, is that big LMTV military grade truck that we turned into a forestry truck.
Was that on the list that you?
I didn't give you that, say that.
It's a forestry truck
Yeah, so we have that
already?
forestry truck too.
And that
What's
would
the year?
replace that?
What's that?
In the future, that would replace the present forestry truck?
If that was, it gives us options, let's put it that way. I can't say yes or no that it would replace it. I think we would have to assess our needs at the point that that vehicle would need to be replaced. But it gives us the option that should something happen to that truck, we have a much cheaper fix to have a forestry unit as opposed to having to buy a whole new forestry truck.
And the new truck that you're talking about,
Yep.
that you want to put a plow and stuff in
Yep.
front of it, that's not a replacement, that would be a new truck.
That's a new truck, correct. That's a new truck, but it's replacing that replaces two trucks. That replaces our old forestry truck that we just sold last year and would replace the squad truck that we have now that's 26 years old.
So squad car would go, the forestry truck is already gone?
Yep.
And so this.
Yeah, and then we'd be selling the squad
And the
truck.
cost of that is approximately how much?
For what now?
For this new vehicle?
85,000.
And is that in this year's budget?
We actually, that's already, we have, I believe, what, 111,000 in the truck replacement fund?
Yes.
And that's actually, that would be coming out of the truck replacement fund, so it would have no impact on taxes, on the tax rate for this year. That's already an established
My
fund.
next question. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, just to clarify, we sold an old forestry truck already?
did, yep.
And the current one is what year?
The Forestry 2, I want to say, I think 2009? I'd have to look.
It's either 5 or 9.
I think it's 9. I'm pretty sure it's
That
2009.
was initially a loan from
Right.
the state of Maine. And they gave us 2 years to use it as a forestry truck, and if we follow all the rules, now we've met that deadline, we can request the title for the
Right.
vehicle.
So basically by doing what we, as you say, by going by our end of the contract and meeting all the things that they asked us to require, they give us that vehicle. So, which it's in phenomenal shape. I expect, a good many years of service out of that vehicle, so.
So what was the total year percentage going up this year? Is it flatlined or did you go up more?
I came in with a 1.5% increase.
The extra increase on the fire department operational budget ties back to insurance, health insurance, workers' comp and unemployment, all things that we really can't control.
How many actually get that, Michelle?
I'm sorry?
How many actually get that, Michelle?
Two,
Two?
the health insurance.
Yes.
And that went up approximately 10%?
Well, they're not giving a definite. Our policy renews in September, and
Okay.
they're telling everybody to budget conservatively, but look anywhere as high as 12%.
12 is
So-
the max. Okay.
Right.
One question, Chief. In the Town of Acton annual report,
Yep.
you had a whole bunch of various types of calls that the department makes. If you could just sort of help me, because I am a put together, not a separator sometimes, what percent of all of these calls are based on rescue, ambulance, and how much of them are based on fire and things of that sort?
We've been pretty,
Divided just into those two major.
yeah,
categories.
we've been running pretty steady at about 60 to 65% medical calls with 35% or so fire calls. As of this past week, we're running right around that same thing, about 60% medical calls each for this year so far as well.
Do you see in the future, excuse me, go ahead.
No.
Do you see in the future any further vehicle acquisition?
I do.
Necessary for the rescue and medical portion of your operation?
As far as the rescue and medical, the utility truck would would set us up for probably a good 20 years as far as needing another type rescue type truck. The ambulance, typically you replace, well, most places try to replace their ambulances every 7 or 8 years. My goal was to do it 10 years, which we've also increased, like the preventative maintenance stuff we do and some policies that, will help extend the life of the vehicle. So we're really trying to go for 10 years. It'd be about 10 years, we'd be looking at another ambulance. The next big purchase, vehicle-wise, that I'm going to be looking to put in for is to replace the tanker truck. When we bought the tanker truck, we knew that was just to get us through 4 or 5 years, which is why we put a little bit of money into it. But it's in decent shape, but it is also getting on to be, pretty close to 30 years old. So we'd want to replace that in probably 3 years. And that, so you'd probably be looking at anywhere between, around 450,000 or so for that. Yes, Tom?
First of all, with respect to your distribution of rescue versus fire calls,
Yep.
Where are you classifying automobile accidents in that? They rescue calls basically, or?
Basically rescue calls, correct, yeah. So if you have patients. If there's no patients, then, motor vehicle accidents go down as fire calls, so they don't actually get categories as a medical call. When I say medical rescue, the 60% is medical calls. The rest of the calls, the accidents, chimney fires, alarm activations, that all qualifies as a fire call.
Okay, so your
Yep.
so your accidents then, automobile accidents and stuff like that are classified as fire calls?
Correct, yeah.
So they're in that 30 to 40% range?
Right, yep.
Okay, the other question I had was, what percentage of our calls approximately are mutual aid or out-of-town calls versus
Yep.
in town? And if you could do that by fire and rescue, please.
So let's see. So last year, for mutual aid fire calls, we did 26 mutual aid fire calls, and we did 57 mutual aid medical calls. So the total of mutual aid, let's see. I can give you the number exact.
Well, if you can just give us totals on,
Yeah, so you're talking, last year we went mutual aid total of, 83 times last year.
okay, but out of your total fire calls, how many total fire calls did you have? So 26 were out of town, so what was your
Yep.
total there? Total fire calls?
Well, we did, let's see, so,
26 is in the annual report.
what's that?
26 is out of.
26 is in the mutual aid.
I think Tom is
Okay.
asking, as a whole, including in-town and out-of-town, what was the total?
Right.
Well, we did 386 calls total last year. I'm sorry, that was the year before. Last year, this past year, we did 468.
Okay, and how many of those were fire calls, total number of fire calls? You have that? I just got my book this morning, so I probably have.
Yeah, I didn't bring last year's run totals with me, other than what's on here. I'd have to go through individually and do them for you, but I can certainly get you that information.
Okay.
You get it?
Do you have any idea how much a false alarm costs the town? I noticed that in the annual report, 12 cases of false alarms occurred.
Boy, I tell you, I've never really categorized it like that. It depends on what responds. It depends on, pretty much, you already have the people on duty, so there's no cost above and beyond like what a false alarm is costing you, with the exception of the response. But it probably, if I was to guess, to throw a number at it, maybe $50.
Just for the gas to get there?
Just for the fuel and things like that, or the pay for people that come in off duty.
Okay.
They get, the stipend pay, but.
Tom, the book that you just got this morning, as you pointed out, wouldn't have any calls in it anyways. The amount of calls aren't part of his budget. It's not something he submitted, so the town report, those numbers might be in there, or certainly.
Well, that's what I was thinking about, this book.
Okay, not the budget.
I just got that one
So
this
that's on
morning.
you, that you just got that this morning.
And I think some of
So
those
we're
numbers
clear.
are in there, but that's fine.
We offer mutual aid for fire and rescue to Sanford,
Yes, we do. Yep.
and they still come up here?
Yes, yep.
Do they charge us still?
If we call them for a paramedic intercept, they do, but that's it. The only thing that they were charging is if say we only had 2 basic EMTs on duty, and we needed a paramedic, and we called them just for their paramedic, they would charge us for that. But mutual aid, like fires and things like that, or second call medicals where they come and they do the transport kind of the way we have ours set up, we don't get charged for that.
So
It's purely just mutual aid. So
if we provided the same service to them, would we charge them?
well, they always have paramedics on duty, so the only time they would be calling us is if they needed another additional ambulance, which the same as with any of the other communities, we don't charge if we actually get the transport because that's a billable call. But if we go and our paramedic gets in another ambulance to provide paramedic service, that's when we charge because we can't bill for that. So that's when we charge an intercept fee to that community. Otherwise, all the fire mutual aid, ambulance mutual aid, and things of that nature is just reciprocal, and there are no fees to any community.
Right.
So,
And can you tell us what the fees are?
yep, $375 for an intercept fee.
And what about, who covers the station, how much the fee is there?
I'm sorry?
When they cover the station here in town, how much of the fee is there?
There's no fees for that. That's mutual aid.
Okay.
Yeah. The only fees that get assessed is for intercept, medic intercept, paramedic intercept.
So is that going to show up as incoming
That'll show up as revenue to the town.
revenue? It will.
Yep.
But it hasn't so far. You haven't.
We have. I don't know what's been billed out as far as the intercepts yet, but there have been several intercepts that we've run.
It's starting.
Whereabouts in your
It has
budget is
started,
that
yes.
cost?
Okay,
Yeah,
that's all
and
right.
I would give you a better number,
No,
but,
no, as long as it's starting and.
yeah, I
and-
Yeah,
just
it-
got
it has been
the
implemented,
ambulance
yep.
reporting since January yesterday from our billing company,
Perfect,
so.
thank
And,
you.
and the thing to remember too is that now, like, very rarely do we have to call for an intercept now because we're running at the paramedic level basically 100% of the time. We did some schedule changes and added additional medics, and we're at the paramedic level just about 100% of the time with a very rare shift without one, but for the most part, we're at the medic level.
Where do you budget for that kind of fee?
What's that?
Where do you budget? for that?
Other contracted services comes out of there.
Yep.
Steve, did you want to mention your gear for next year?
Yep. I can continue right down the list if you'd like, actually. So, I budgeted also for this year. If you guys, I don't know if y'all recall from last year, we had to decide whether turnout gear or SCBA last year. We decided to get the turnout gear because it was all going out of date. Knowing that this year I was going to put in for SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. So what I've budgeted for the self-contained breathing apparatus this year is $56,502. We need to buy 17 SCBA total, and that's budgeting the purchase of 9 this year, and then we'll look at getting 8 next year. Or I've also submitted a grant as well as letters from our state representatives, hopefully that they'll send to FEMA in support of this. Hopefully we'll get lucky. If we get the grant, that'll purchase the other half of the SCBA. That's the plan. We'll see what happens. If not, I'll be back again asking for the other half next year. But currently our SCBA are all between, 6 of them are between 12 and 15 years old. 9 of them are between 15 and 20 years old. We're not sure. That was the best estimate they could give us from the testing company that services and tests all our SCBA. So
And 20 is the deadline, right?
15's the deadline,
15
actually.
is the deadline.
So that's why if we at least get the 9 this year, then that'll replace the ones that are over that 15-year mark. And then if we have to wait till next year, we'll get the other 6 serviced and tested, and then purchase the other ones next year. But
How much is the grant for if you get it?
the other half, yeah.
Sorry, I missed that.
What's that?
Sorry that I missed it.
Oh, no, that's fine, no problem. So that being said, you will notice that we currently have 15, and what I'm looking to purchase is 17. And the reason being is because the new ambulance, we should have SCBA on the new ambulance, so that's 2 additional to be able to have SCBA on the ambulance as well, so.
When will you know if you get the grant?
They start announcing usually midsummer, so it'll be not too long after the budget kicks in. We should start hearing the announcements and hearing more about it, hopefully.
Do you give a report back to the selectmen and let us know at that point? Or-
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. If we get the grant, I'll come back to the select board and
So 16 units would allow us to commit 8 people at a time in an incident, right?
well, we'll have,
Back up and out, you're gonna have.
You're thinking of the 2 in, 2 out laws?
Well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking about, how many people we're gonna put in a building or in a situation? How many people do we need to be able to?
Well, obviously, every building at fire is
Right.
different. But as far as like, you only have to have 2 people outside and we set up a RIT team. After that, so if I had 20 people on scene, I mean, realistically, you're gonna lose 5 or 6 people as drivers, pumping trucks, things like that. So you got 15 people that can work. I could have 13, 14 people inside and still meet the requirements of the safety. So basically, you have one team assigned to be that.
To back up?
To back up.
All the interior teams, you'd have one team to back up all the
Yeah,
interior?
correct, yeah. But most of the time though, you'll have in staging, like if we have a first alarm, you'll have usually 4, 6, 8 people inside working, and you'll still have 10 or 12 people in the staging, all packed up, ready to go, to rotate the crews out as it is, so, yeah. But we'll have enough SCBA to outfit all our personnel at that point that usually show up, so, in that interior.
Have we actually experienced an incident where we've committed that many people at any point in time?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Typically though, I mean, honestly, typically most fires,
to
if we
4.
get 10 or 12 of our own members showing up, that's, a decent turnout just because of the way people's work schedule and things work. That's why we have the mutual aid from all the other communities come in, So we'll typically on a first alarm fire have 30 or 40 people on scene, including the surrounding communities. And with every alarm above a first alarm, you get an additional 3 tankers and an engine to the scene, which is basically 3 more communities to the scene as well with their personnel, so.
The other question I'd have with respect to the SCBA is what do we have arranged for filling tanks on scene? Is there anybody available these days? Is there somebody supplying us?
Yeah, there's usually
fill on
somebody like with a cascade system.
Right.
Will come to the scene. Yeah.
We do have mutual aid cascades?
Yes, correct. Yep. Or plus we have spare bottles for every pack on the trucks, and
Right.
we have a fill station in our station.
Oh, there's a fill station
Yep.
in this town.
Yep. So
Steve, just for clarification, is this SCBA a separate article?
it is. It's it's a capital line. Yep.
And what's the total amount requested?
56,502.
Okay.
Yep.
So this quote here is,
56,502 on that.
Yep.
okay. Okay. And that's for, you said 8?
9.
9.
9. Yep.
Now, as far as capital
Oh, I
equipment
see.
for this coming year, vehicles,
Yep.
we're only talking about the one vehicle at 85K,
Correct.
and that will be taken out of the fund that's
Correct.
already been.
Yes.
So there's no actual increase as far as the budgetary. things
Correct.
With that one.
I had initially put in for 75,000 to also to go into the truck fund, with the respect of knowing that down the road we need to purchase a tanker truck. But I also understand that there's also a lot of other priorities that the town needs to focus on this year as well. Getting the utility truck is key. That's essential to our operations. As far as the truck fund, I'd like to continue working on building that for down the road for the tanker. But, as obviously why you're all here is understanding the priorities and setting the priorities, so.
Okay, then, going down to the bottom of the sheet, fire department fiscal year, budget proposal.
Yep.
That is what you're proposing, and that's not necessarily what's going on the warrant, is that correct? Do I understand that? Because I'm looking here at a truck replacement, $75,000, and then a utility truck below that at $75,000, is that?
The 75,000 was, would have been for the 350 as opposed to the 85,000 for the 550, but quite frankly, the 350, looking into it more, isn't gonna meet what we need it to be able to meet.
Right.
So that's why, the 75,000 is, I'm asking for the 85,000 as opposed to the 75,000.
Okay, then I'm confused because we have two trucks listed under capital expense, Michelle, here.
Yeah.
Can you?
This is his initial request. So
Okay.
what, the
Okay.
first
Okay,
line
that's
is, the first line that says truck replacement, $75,000, that was his initial request
Okay.
to put into the fund to make up for what they were gonna take out of the fund.
Right.
Thank you.
That's not clear on
You're
that sheet,
welcome.
but,
No, that's a
Okay.
good question. I have one last question, and that
Sure.
is, you do quality assurance on both the fire end and the medical end.
It's not mine.
Yes, we do.
Is that proving to be successful?
It is.
Have items been identified that
Yep.
that have encouraged a change in whatever you were doing beforehand?
Yeah, absolutely. There has been, and on top of that, as well as the quality assurance program that we have in the review process of the medical runs, I've also been having meetings with the per diem employees to go over all areas of our operations, where we basically brainstorm new ideas, talk about things that work, things that don't, and make sure everybody's on the same page as well, which also helps ensure quality and consistency of the operations.
How many members do you currently have for rescue and fire?
I think I have 37 on the roster, I believe.
Is that a combination of both, or?
That's everything. Yep, that's everybody.
I have just one last question,
Sure.
and that is, as far as automobile accidents for which you go to the scene,
Yep.
do you correlate this in such a way that geographically you identify where they occurred and have those data been sent to the road committee if there seems to be any sort of an increase in accidents in a particular area of town?
Right. To be honest with you, we, surprisingly so, we have very few motor vehicle accidents as a whole. It makes up a very small number of our calls.
Did I read
We
12
only had
last year?
15 motor vehicle accidents last year, and honestly, there's really no rhyme or reason or pattern that's quite identifiable as far as,
Sort
location.
of clustering of events?
Not really. They managed to scatter them out quite well.
Thank you, sir.
One more, this,
Sure,
the
Tom.
generator,
Yep.
Blue Hills Radio Tower, what is Blue?
So,
That's a new reference.
I know, I understand that. So I asked for 5,500 to
I'm
install.
wondering where this, is this Blueberry?
It is on Blueberry Hill
Okay,
Road, yeah, yeah.
All right, that's,
That's the radio tower that
Yeah.
we utilize for all our frequencies.
Yeah.
So, and currently there's no power backup to it, other than battery backup, which is very limited in the length that those can work. And like this last storm that we had to actually get more batteries and go up and replace them. So we're just looking to put a generator up there to make sure that we can, that comes on and off automatically, that we can make sure we'll power our radios should we lose power.
this takes us to another question with respect
Sure.
to capital. This is probably not one that you can answer because
Okay.
it has a long history, but Ed knows where I'm going with this. We're still tied into that contract up there, right?
Yes.
And are we making any motion on getting out of it or because that was a topic of discussion 3 or 4 years ago now.
I think we're in year 5 or 6?
I want to say we're in year 3 or 4.
4? Yeah, true.
Is there any planning going on or anticipation of how we're going to
The only choice
deal with
would
this
be
situation?
take it by eminent domain, which I don't think,
I don't think that's an option.
that's not an option.
I
It wasn't
agree.
back then.
I agree.
I don't think we ever should take anything by eminent domain.
I agree.
The only other thing would be to move the site, move the tower. We can get out of it at any moment. I think it's a 60-day
Right, notice, right.
notice.
But several years ago, we did have discussion about pursuing this, and I'm just wondering if there has been any actual pursuit or investigation.
If I remember, there had been talk about possibly moving the site up off of H
Milk
Road.
Mills. Oh,
Is that correct? Off
No,
of,
the problem with bringing it in this direction is that tower is utilized for a number of different
Right.
towns.
right.
Okay. Alfred, North Berwick,
yeah,
Lebanon. If we move it this way, they lose coverage.
right.
So it needs to be in that direction of where it is now, but a possible higher site, which there's not too many down there.
The only other options you could have would be going to a taller tower, but the location-wise isn't a bad location. It's just the cost of basically what you're paying because of the contract is what really is the concern.
The highest peak we have over here is on Bonham's Hill.
On what?
Bonham's Hill, that's the highest peak we have on this side of town. No, this isn't this side, it's back, it's across from
Well,
Blueberry.
there's the
Bonham's
old-
Hill is where
there's
all
the
the
old-
other old towers are.
There's the old site where air traffic control towers are located too. The other thing was that we had talked about a couple of years ago when we were discussing this issue was getting other towns to participate in paying for that, paying those lease fees.
What, 1,200 a year, 1,000 a year, 1,200?
And along with that too, as part of the York County Communications Group, they also, when there are repairs and things to be made, there is also a contribution towards the repairs from the group. But there's also, several other towers throughout the county that this group contributes to. So basically, when you house a tower, they'll help you with it, but it's your responsibility to maintain the facilities. So, but they do contribute to upkeep and things like that, and towards the lease. So.
I have a question, Steve. You had given us a quote for a generator here at Town Hall to operate the tower that's here.
Correct.
In your opinion, do both of them go hand in hand? Do you need a generator for both? Is one more important than the other?
So, the Blueberry Hill is my number one concern because that's the primary emergency frequencies. But the one here also is our local channel, which in storms and things of that nature is essential because the other frequencies get so busy that a lot of times the radios get almost jammed up, and we can go to our local and we can transmit and work off our local frequency. So honestly, in a busy emergency, in the types of situations where we'd be losing power, this one, day to day, the other one, the Blueberry Hill, is more essential. But in major incidents and during storms, this one becomes more important, just because that's kind of our lifeline to each other here. So I guess I kind of have to keep them on an equal level. They're both equally important to us, especially in the situations when you would need the generator to kick in.
And what was the estimate?
For the one here at Town Hall was 88?
800, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing.
How are you going to get your source of power to either, one would come from Town Hall, I'm assuming, but where would the source of power come
The
from?
two separate generators.
Yeah, but where would the source of power come from Blueberry Hill? There's going to be a source of power to operate a generator.
No, the generators creates the power. It runs off propane.
Right, but like
Yeah.
if you have a home generator, you've got to have another source of power, either propane or other.
Yeah, it's propane. It'll be fed by propane, and they already have the propane tanks here established. So it'd just be a matter of running a line from the propane to the
So what
generator.
about, like, if it stays at Blueberry Hill, what would that contend to? Would you have to get a propane?
Yeah, they would put in, for instance, like a 100-pound cylinder, with propane in it, or a 350-gallon cylinder to feed it off of through down east.
And have we talked to the property owner about adding a propane tank on their property?
Well, that's kind of it.
Yeah, and that would be the only thing I would,
Right.
be concerned of.
We haven't at this point had that conversation, but if it gets approved, that's when obviously we'd have that conversation. Part of the lease is the building maintenance and upkeep, and part of that would, honestly, having a generator is important to that upkeep of that building. So he's been very cooperative. He's actually been more than reasonably cooperative with us in the dealings I've had with him when we had to cut trees and clean out the area to, because of things that were impinging on the cables for the tower and on the lines coming in. And he really, honestly, he's been extremely cooperative in all that. I don't see it being an issue at all.
How many BTUs would that be? I know
BTUs?
a regular home generator
Okay.
is 1,100.
It's actually,
It's 10, we're moving on to the next
I'd like
time
to-
frame.
I think it's
But-
a 12,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
May I just one comment, one observation for Michelle? We have successfully powered the radio here with portable generators from the fire station on several occasions, and it's a really quick and easy setup. So that would lower the priority of this one.
Well,
with-
yeah. Unfortunately, our generators are getting older and
Yeah.
have been failing too, so.
I understand that.
I didn't
All I'm
come for
saying
those
is
yet
it
this
can
year,
be
though.
done.
Well, thank you, Steve. I think most of the questions were asked and answered.
All right.
Thank you,
you.
Chief.
Good job. Thank you. Have a good day.
On that, Michelle, on those generators, you're talking next year's process, not this year's, right? In other words, you're talking about buying them next year versus this year.
If the budget is approved.
Are we talking
Can we leave this?
2019 or are we talking 2020?
19.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Steve, will you send the road guys in?
Roads 10510.
What's the number again?
10510.
Well, it's at 4 o'clock tonight, I guess.
separate or together, Liz? Or separate?
I think we should do them separate if there's separate budgets. So District 1 up first?
Yeah.
Hello,
Hi.
Morning, Scott.
morning. Any questions for me?
Direct and
You gotta go down through your budgets. Do you have a copy of it there?
Yes, I do, but, I mean, my budget's pretty cut and dry, same as last year. No increases, but the stipend. And as far as the stipend, we're asking no more than what the selectmen get per year. And I would like to see it, like at the end of the year, sign-off bonus. One pay at the end of that fiscal year. So on June 30th, we thank you for, and I wrote down just a couple notes of just this past week. Monday, payroll. Tuesday, road posting calls. Thursday night, 2 a.m. to 10 a.m., up all night. No money made that night, because I was ready, waiting to go. And Saturday, no trip, because I was gonna go snowmobiling this weekend, which I had 2 trips all paid for free, and I didn't go for a 15-minute meeting with you people. Thank you for all being here, though. That was just this week, and that's why I'm asking for the stipend.
Mr. Mooney, I'd like to ask a question. In the annual book for summer maintenance with District 1 and District 2, the designated fund balances carried forward to fiscal year 17-18. The summer maintenance monies for District 1 that was carried over was $49,897. And for the District 2, it was only $2,176. Why is there such a big difference?
Because,
Page 26.
well, I mean, first of all, the fiscal year isn't over yet, so who's to say that my budget isn't gonna be $2,000 turned over June 30th? So the year isn't done yet.
Are you talking about last year?
Yeah.
Can I,
16, 17.
we did discuss this on the floor of the town meeting last year.
Okay.
Okay? And because the issue was raised. If you recall, I was rather insistent that operating accounts should be terminated and not carried. And I still believe that that's the proper way to budget. Scott apparently had not spent a lot of his summer maintenance money at the point of the town meeting and had planned on being able to carry those funds over.
To do different projects.
To do projects that he had planned on. If my motion to close those accounts, as they should be operating accounts, had gone through and carried on the floor of the town meeting, Scott would have been out most of his summer maintenance money. I didn't realize that going into that meeting.
Absolutely,
And
Tom.
so I withdrew the motion, and that accounts for the numbers that are showing up here in this
Right,
report.
it allows us to, because we are part-time.
Right.
You know, we have other lives, we have, you know, other jobs that we have to grab when we can. I appreciate the job, and the people that give me, what I do, and I appreciate that I can pick and choose what time and when, and I try to do it most efficiently and when it's good for the town people when I spend their money.
So what happened was that David had spent most of his summer, or a substantial portion of his summer maintenance money by June 30, and Scott had not. That's the difference there. They had started out with the same budgets, and they ended up, I presume, spending approximately the same, but it was just a matter of when it got spent over the course of the summer.
Scott, the stipend you're looking for, is it just for yourself or for your employees also? Is that gonna be shared amongst?
Well, I don't think my employees call me up.
No, but.
They don't wait up
they're part
from
of-
Thursday
if they live
from
in
2.
town, they're part of.
Well, that's up to the selectmen, because it's actually the selectmen's employees. They're not mine.
Straight answer would
I
be
thought
nice.
you hired the crew.
Well, graciously, yes, I hire the crew, but they're not my employees.
Are they town employees?
They're town employees.
So that means the town cuts their paycheck every 2 weeks
Yes,
Every week.
week.
or every week, whatever.
Unless somebody don't sign them.
Once in 7 years. Thanks for pointing that out, Scott. We inadvertently didn't sign yesterday's checks.
Did it still go through? It probably still went through.
No,
didn't
no,
it?
they caught it.
Oh, no kidding, they caught it? I'm
It was a
amazed.
test.
I'm
So going
amazed that they
forward,
caught
don't
it.
ask for them on Thursdays anymore. Maybe it's more questions. You can sign.
Okay,
So
so,
I have a question, and I don't care if it's in general or what. We give this gentleman so much to run our side of town, or the side of town, or be a selectman. Normally, you're given a budget, and normally when you hire your employees, you write the checks for your employees. The town does not do it. Why does the town do it?
It's the town's money.
It's not that, it's not, it's like if I was.
We
you
don't,
guys
we don't
hired
give
me-
Scott $84,000.
Right, this is what I want explained.
Right. There, I mean, there are several ways to do it. We could require Scott or David or whomever else might be in the position to hire their own workers under their own business and carry their own insurance for unemployment or workers' comp. That is doable. However, I don't believe that anybody is going to work at these rates when they have to pay those types of insurances on their employees. So we would be looking at an increase in rates, for sure.
Now, that being said, if they're being cut a check from the town, why can't they be entitled to insurance?
Because they don't work the required amount of time.
They don't work enough
To
hours.
be
So
in
they're
the
qualified.
under 20 hours or just barely biting
All
the
year
bullet?
long.
All year long.
Under it.
Yeah. And there isn't a single one of them that works even close to that all year long.
Not even Scott?
Well, Scott doesn't put
No.
in for his hours like that.
No, like I said, all these hours that I have written down just for this week, I think I billed for like 2 hours this week.
I think if we go back in history about 4 or 5 years, we did thoroughly investigate this issue.
Oh, yeah, we
know
did. I just want to
Okay.
make sure that we're all on the same
Yeah,
page, and this
yeah.
is nothing that's changed and nothing so on and so
Discussion we
forth.
had when Catherine was treasurer, I think.
That
more
was
than once.
way before that then. It was a long
Yeah,
time
yes,
ago.
I know.
Okay,
I have another question.
question.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Under your labor line,
Man, I made a mess.
District 1 winter, your request that went from $10,000 to $13,000, that includes your stipend request and the end-of-the-year bonus for your crew?
No, the only thing besides my regular budget, which if you go down to 50451,
Okay,
yeah, I don't know where that one is. I don't know where that came, that $35,000 project. It's on my budget.
What do you,
And a special for 25.
Those are
Thank you very
from
much.
oh, no,
previous
I was
years.
wondering, you'd mentioned a proposed stipend for
on the
hourly.
on the
very
very
bottom.
bottom.
You,
FY 19?
Okay, I'm looking at this.
Nancy, I
See
think
this one?
you might be looking at the
That's
wrong
not
book.
me. That's not me. I didn't ask for that.
no,
Up here.
you'd asked for a proposed stipend.
Right, so you
An
went up
end-of-year bonus.
down here, that's down here. So his winter
Oh, I
labor
see,
went
I
from,
see.
he's hoping.
Okay, I didn't see that down
Right,
there.
it was 13 last year, he wants to keep it at 13.
Okay, okay,
These are your numbers.
alrighty.
That's the stipend request.
Ah, thank you very much.
Only other thing that Dave and I discussed and we changed, well, we added, is if you go to trucks, we added a 5 to 7 cubic yard truck, because obviously I bought one that's in that area. So we're just trying to break it off of 1 ton, but it's not a 7 yard truck.
Pat's does too.
It's four-wheel drive, it's, you know,
Pat says too, right?
well, I have a 1 ton just like Pat's,
Okay.
but this one's a little bigger of a truck than that. Can hold more dirt, it's four-wheel drive, but so we added that into the equipment level, and we just put it in between a 7 yard truck and a 1 ton. It's a little more of it's a lot more than a 1 ton, but it's not as big as a 7 yard truck. So I felt there was a need to have that category in there.
I just want to point out that $9,903 is including taxes, so it's including the town's portion of Medicare and Social Security. The actual stipend requested was $9,200.
And there, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. finish.
Well, I was just gonna say, there again, Dave and I, all, and the town employees, get no paid holidays unless we work. which it seems so it snows every Christmas or every New Year's. You know, we have no insurance, nothing unless I work an hour. And I'm very cautious on when I bill. 'Cause like this week, I don't want to bill for that stupid stuff. That's not the way that I've been doing this for 15 years straight. It's not the way I go with it.
I don't want to sound cold, but I work 3 jobs, and 2 of those jobs are if I don't work, I don't get paid, and that's my choice.
Mr. Mooney, may I?
I also don't have insurance in those jobs, and that's my choice. You know what I'm saying?
Understand.
And I just want to point out that the hourly rate was increased last year, 22% for your
All right, can I
per
say
hour
something?
paid. Yeah,
Do you have the responsibility that I have?
partially. I have 2
Partially.
kids in college.
Partially. I meant with the roads.
Oh, with the roads?
Right.
Yeah, it's a great responsibility.
Yes, it is. And I'm just saying there should be a little something, whether it's insurance, whether it's a stipend, should be something, because I'm not going to go around with my little black book and write down 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there.
Now that Scott brought that up, between insurance and what he wants and offers, which is the 92, which one is better?
Insurance is about $16,000 a year.
So
Per-
either way. Now, would that
That's what
just
the
be
town.
for yourself, or
No,
that
that's
would
what
be
the
just for the
town. That's what the
family?
town pays the town employees that collect insurance.
Right, but I
Roughly about
didn't-
16,000 a year.
But what I'm getting to, Scott, too, is that that's for you, or is that for the family, too? Is that that's just
It's just me.
individual?
For him, it would be less than 16,000. You'd probably be looking at 13,000 for him.
So what would be better for us is either town people
Okay.
or in general?
As far as the insurance goes, documented 10 hours a week is required by the insurance company. So, the road commissioners would have to document and prove that they put in 10 hours a week,
And I'm sure.
every week.
I'm
What
sorry.
about the selectmen?
They don't get insurance either.
They don't get insurance
No,
either?
they don't.
Okay.
But my biggest concern is that he wants one or the other, and we're looking at one of the, well,
And then we open a can of worms there, because we have a lot of other employees who work less than what the town requires, that would qualify. So do we give it to one department and not the other departments, that are working a minimum of 10 hours a week? It could be a significant increase, because we'd have to be able to offer it to all of the employees that work a
But,
minimum of
I
10
mean,
hours.
there again, I want to go back to saying, I could easily pull 10 hours a week myself, but I don't. I try to use the time efficiently. I could easily.
I mean, Michelle, I'm
Fix
not
a
trying to open a
sign,
can
do
of worms.
this, do
I
that.
just want to know what
It should be
would work
discussed.
better. You know, I hate, in today's world, and I've lived without insurance myself. When I first had my first 2 children, I didn't have insurance. I've lived in both directions, having it and have-nots. It's easier with, it is highly costable. My biggest thing is that, okay, he's looking at, what, $9,200 versus whatever it is for an individual. I'm not saying family.
Yeah.
I'm saying individual. Is it worth us in today's world to look at this?
Not unless you're gonna look at it for everybody that
Well,
works
we
in this
may
town.
have to. It's coming down to where we
Well, I
might
mean,
have to. We
Excuse
may
me.
have
Where are
no
we gonna get the
choice.
money to pay for all this
Well,
goodness?
that's why he's asking
That's
for a
why we're-
stipend and not the
Yeah,
insurance.
both.
Right, and then,
The town
No,
has
every other-
109 employees currently. We'll say about 10 have insurance.
all the teachers don't have insurance?
Through school.
Yes, through the school
Okay,
insurance,
yeah.
yes.
Does the
Yeah.
fire department, does he have
Two.
insurance?
Yes.
The head guy down there?
The-
Well, this head guy don't
Yeah,
have
The
nothing.
2 full-time
Yeah.
employees have insurance.
Well, okay.
So no elected officers of the town or employees of the town have insurance?
No
No,
elected
no.
officials. There's a difference
no
between
elected officials.
elected and hired.
Town hall,
Right.
town hall staff over 21 hours is eligible. Transfer station, fire department.
And the school.
And
Well, we don't
They're
deal with
their
the
own
schools
little
insurance.
I know, there are no
That's in the
world.
school budget.
they're in their own little budget.
Down budget.
May I ask a question, please? I'm a little confused, I need some help. When you look at 105-12,
Summer maintenance.
summer maintenance, materials, and subcontractor services, in 17, it was 6,000 and 20,000, 18, 15,000 and 35,000, and you're requesting the same this year. And when you compare it with the other district is a great deal smaller, and there are no data for fiscal year 18 and the 19 request, on, at least on
Well,
my
I mean-
copy. Can I
Yes.
get some explanations from you and perhaps from the treasurer as well?
Absolutely. These numbers in the middle really, they really don't match up as far as budgeting. A few years ago, Scott and I sat down together and we looked at basically what he was spending in subcontractor service on his budget. And we tried to get a better number closer to that. Within the line, the 92,917 can't be overspent. Sometimes it might be easier for him to have a contractor to do something if it requires a piece of equipment that he doesn't have, or if he doesn't have the employees available at the time. That has always been something that has been hard to anticipate for the departments, exactly what they're going to need from a subcontractor. David, this year, he did not break down his request line by line, so I left it
Blank.
blank.
I'm on your time now.
10:20.
Okay, so we're gonna, David, why don't you come on up, because it's, past 10:15, and I wanna split the time up between the two of them.
Say that again?
It's time for David to come up to explain his budget. You can stay and listen, because if there's time after, there may be a few more questions of the warrant and finance as well.
I'm
Okay.
Yes, sir, that would be fine. If you have no objection.
How you doing this morning?
yourself.
Well, I guess Scott pretty much covered most of it. We were asked to not increase our budget by 1.5%, half of the 3% of cost of living. So when we talked about the stipend, I think this is probably the third year I think we've asked for this. This is the first year it was actually, I think, being considered. I don't believe the warrant has been written yet, as far as I know. So, so when we talked about it, we originally started off at the original $16,000 mark, and then we started compromising. This is with just Scott and I ourselves, and we came down to the number of 92, thinking that was what the selectmen got. And so, in the end of it, we're not gonna get paid $9,200, by the time the taxes, everything is taken out, it's quite a bit less than that. But, to reiterate what Scott was talking about was, if you look at my line item, you look at my payroll of what I've charged the town of Acton this year, from 2017, July 2017 to, you just say January 1st, I'd only charge the town of Acton for 2 days of my time on that highway budget line, okay? I had 0 hours through the whole summer, because what I do is, I'm running as a supervisor. What I do is I go out, and you can see that we've done stuff. So I go out, I set my crew up every morning. I usually got an hour and a half of setup. I'm usually setting up an hour before those guys get in, getting out all tools, getting everything, calling gravel pits. And then what I do is I'll go out on site. I show these guys the sites, okay? And then I move on. I come back during the day, check up on, make sure that everything's all right. The problem we have here is we're trying to do a lot of work with a little money. And at the amount of, the rate that we've set for the road commission, you explained that we've had this huge increase in our rate. When I have to go to a job site and do something myself, believe me, $30 an hour doesn't cut my time. My time's worth more than $30 an hour, okay? But, and that's also for the plow and the snow and everything else, okay? There's a lot of organization, a lot of supervising, a lot of liabilities that I gotta worry about every day. And, you know, I'm calling guys every night, because these are part-time guys. These aren't guys that just show up every morning at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock and go to work. I gotta make sure, I gotta rotate guys. I got some guys only work Monday, don't work Mondays. Some guys don't work Fridays. You know, I'm rotating guys all the time. There's a lot of work behind what I do. And unfortunately, most people don't see it. They just see the guys out doing their stuff. So that was the reasoning behind it. Obviously, the health insurance, I do pay my own health insurance, but it would be nice that, you know, it's a little something. I believe that I put more time in, well, we put more time in than the average elected official in town.
David and Scott, how many employees do you guys have between you?
I've got about 8.
I got at least 6, I think, that are in rotation.
But let me ask a question. I mean, is there any reason why fiscal year 18 and the request for 19 is just left blank?
Okay, I leave.
If we're trying to look and see.
I'm gonna explain this. You asked the question, I'll explain it.
Okay, just a second. If we're trying to determine equal monies are given to each of the 2 commissioners.
Yep.
And if there's a disparity, or if one is using a lot more than the other one, it's worthy of asking a question.
Yeah, but can I answer this one?
Yeah.
There's nothing apples for apples. No road is the same, but the budgets are. We work with them accordingly to what we can do and get done with the same money, even though every road is different. There's no road that's the same.
David, I know you're up this year for re-election. Is this gonna, and I'm not sure if you're running again because this has
I
been
did
one
pull
of
my
those.
papers.
The other question was, is if you don't win by chance, never know, is this set up enough so the next person that steps in your position should be able to follow your lead, or?
I don't know if there's anybody qualified
I
to
don't
follow me,
know.
Lois, really.
I don't know. I'm not out there. I
I'm
don't
just
do your
joking.
job.
And Lois, to answer that one too, you watch, you'll see nobody else pull their papers. So
I
if
don't know
David
that.
chooses not to,
I
what's gonna happen with that?
I know, but there was talk a while ago, and
Well, if
David and I
chooses
talked
I-
about
We'll
it.
be
I've been,
contacting council.
there's been some talk.
Yeah, and that's gonna
that-
cost more money.
There's been some talk, and I've been very vocal, that I wasn't, and I don't wanna turn this into candidates night.
No.
But,
That's why I was
I'm
setting
very
up a-
displeasured by our road committee,
Okay.
okay?
We're not here
But,
to talk about
we're not here to talk about that, but,
Take
but.
personalities,
but,
I'm just
okay, the
asking.
question came, and, but I do believe that I'm an asset to the town of Acton.
Thank
So,
Mr.
but
Manager.
on my budget, I'd like to answer your question. Earlier, you were talking about how I don't line item, how much it costs for labor and this and that, because it changes every year. Every year, those numbers there are really fictitious numbers. You throw them in there, and I know you don't like to hear that, but every project's different. Some projects you may do, $40,000 worth of subcontracting and only so much for another. So, I could throw those numbers in there, but they're not gonna do nothing for you.
But that's all I'm asking. I mean, you do different things than he does. I understand that, but why leave it all blank? Number one, and number two,
I think-
is
Just explain
my
that.
memory serving me incorrectly that stipends were offered to both of you last year?
Yeah.
And you refused them?
We refused them because what we asked for and what they came back was about a third of what we asked for. And then what was being asked of us to do it, we could have just pulled it out of our budget, and we were trying to get away from doing that for a simple reason is, if you want us to start billing out for the 5-minute phone calls every day, the secretarial work, all that, okay, it's gonna be a quagmire. We're just asking for the same thing the selectmen are getting.
Can I?
You don't want to compare our jobs, but you keep doing it. 'Cause
Oh, I
you-
did,
You work more
yeah.
than we do, but can you just stop comparing the amount to us?
I
'Cause
apologize if
not
that's,
fair.
but we
The other
put a
question-
lot of time in here.
Okay, the other question I wanted to mention, and I think I tried to do this last year, is I know these line items don't really mean anything because things change. You never know. And I totally understand that, but what I don't see on budget requests or what your projects are going, what's in your head,
I've
what
got
you'd
them
like
written
to
down
do
last
next
year. I
year.
gave you
You wrote them
5
down
years.
last year. I think
cost
Scott
and
did too.
everything.
But I don't see them this year, and that, I think, to me, gives us a better idea of how
Well,
you're
I mean,
going to
would
spend
you
your
want an
summer.
idea of what I'm doing? I mean,
Oh, you haven't?
well, yeah, I can, what,
I-
I can give you an idea of what I did and what trying to keep it, I've been telling everybody it's a 3-phase project. It's probably, I'm trying to get it to 2, but obviously without any increases in the budget, it's probably gonna be in 3 year, but we started on the Hopper Road. You've
Okay.
seen what we've done there. And what we did the last year is, we ground, half a mile, based it, and then we, of course, we changed, I think it was 12 culverts. I haven't got it right here, but we changed all the culverts all the way up through that section of that 1.5 miles. We changed all the culverts there, and we shimmed and overlaid the rest of it, which was 1.5 miles of road. And there's a small section between San Page, 0.4 miles, almost a half mile, from San Page Road to where we started the paving. I want to do that section there. There's a section there where we've got some ledge in the road. There's going to be some excavation. And then from where we stopped the new pavement, just over the hill right before flat ground, there's a section there. It's about a mile. Let's see here. It's about a mile. It's a mile. And that section there, we're looking at about, I think it's 0.4 miles that we're looking to grind and rehab. We've got 3 more culverts to change there, and we're gonna obviously have to base that half mile, then shim and overlay the whole thing to the dam, not to the bridge.
Does it make sense to show us that type of work with your summer maintenance plan in a rough?
A little rough for the year.
Yeah, I mean,
What
isn't
if
that
it
what
cha-
we
what if it
kind of want to
changes?
see, not like a
I changed,
flat line? And if it
But
changes, that's fine, but
I
if it
changed my
changes,
project up
All
this
you have
year.
to do is say, hey, we had an emergency, it changed, we don't expect.
It changed.
Yeah.
I gave you guys last year
I think what people see is like
itemized
a big
list.
chunk of
I-
change
I-
and
I
go do
think-
what you want, but I think to have a plan that's obviously
I
has to be flexible, that would be.
I understand, but it's like trying to talk to Mother Nature too.
Right.
Well, that's it.
It doesn't happen.
But you've got something
But-
going on in here, and we don't see it.
Can I,
We
can
wanna-
can I make a suggestion? I think, I know where you're going, and what we should have is a disbursement journal here, so we have an explanation, but we need to go behind that. Okay, in order to see what is actually going on here, we need to go to the worksheets that are submitted to the treasurer every week, okay, so that we can construct and see what they're actually getting paid for, all right? And that's a job that this committee can do.
We're talking about budget for 1920, we don't know,
Exactly. Okay.
what's that gonna look like next year?
Well, in order to get there,
gonna
we
look
need
like
to
this.
know
Where we've
what's been in it before.
This is what I gave you guys last year, of numbers, this and that, projects that I was planning on doing all the way through. I gave you this last year. I've only got part of that project done, so we can continue on with the same project. This is the same
Right.
exact thing as I did last
So
year.
something like that submitted,
Yeah, I gave you that last year.
okay.
Right.
And this
You
right
need it
here
every
is
year.
I don't know how many years I did.
I mean,
Have you shown that to Mr. Mooney, so Mr. Mooney can have?
I've written many of budgets. And then they go to the selectmen, and then they,
Okay,
What are your
It's all
summer
changed.
projects for this coming year?
my projects, in the San Page, I wanna do work on Garvin Road, is my worst road. And then I wanna start working on West Shore Drive to get it paved.
And when you say work on, it, you know
It
what
means
you're going to do.
fix
is
it up
work
to
on.
my stuff,
Have you
my
submitted those to
standards.
the Board of Selectmen? The list of your projects?
We don't have to do that. You gotta understand, Mr.
all right,
Williams.
we're moving.
Mr. Williams, I'm gonna
We-
speak here for a second. I was elected as a road commissioner. At town meeting, they give me a budget. It's my job to dedicate this money to where the roads need to be fixed.
That's
It's not your job or the road committee's job or the selectmen's job to do that.
No, but the Selectmen's job
need
and
to
our
know.
job.
It's not the selectmen's
It's-
job. The
no,
selectmen's
okay.
job is only to
Conversation is
oversee
over.
what we do as long as we do not
That's not what we're here to
break the
talk
law.
about right now. The budget. There's another item on your budget
I
that I'd
haven't
like to
even been
ask
able to
for.
discuss my budget here at all. This is just turned into a quagmire here.
Right, there's too many chiefs.
Where is it on?
We're
What do
elected
you
officials.
want me to tell you? I passed in the same flatline budget as I did last year. I'm working on the Hop Road to finish that project, hopefully keep it to
It's
2
a
phase,
special
not 3.
project. So it's-
And, the stipend, I've told you what I'm gonna tell you about that. That's myself, when Scott and I pass on a budget, it ought to be to the town floor, for the town of Acton. If they wanna strike it down, they can amend the article, just like I did last year when, we didn't have stuff added onto it. I amended the article, you can do the same.
Madam Chair, can I make just a quick observation here? Okay. Basically, these guys contract for the town. That's basically what we hire them to do. We contract basically with them by election as opposed to appointment, okay? And they maintain the roads for us. Looking at this, if I understand correctly, these guys are asking for 3% overhead on their budget here to pay for the management of the jobs, okay? I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it. Now, a contractor, if you sub for a general contractor, the contractor's gonna slap on somewhere between 5 and 10% markup on the subcontractor's bid to administer that contract. We're not very far off from that type of scenario with the way this is being managed, okay? They're doing this apparently, and I don't know this because I'm unable to establish it because we haven't looked at this.
I
but-
understand that you want to explain what's going on, but we have a time frame
I
to
don't believe
follow.
I've been given a whole lot of time in this.
And you haven't.
Thank you, everyone.
Wait, we're gonna talk about
Date-
bridges real quick.
Yeah, you want to put an article
have
on
any
the
bridge-
warrant
I don't have any
for
bridge
road
calls.
bridge. Can you just explain that?
Can you
The
ask question?
article for road bridge.
Oh, yeah. So, we've had this discussion for the last, year and a half now, maybe two. The road bridge, there's been some concerns on the shape of it. And of course, I met with an engineer and this and that, da, 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 da. So what I've done is, I have submitted an article for $20,000 for the town to go out to bid, to get an engineer to go down and do the surveying, do all the work on the bridge, give us an idea of what it's gonna take to fix or replace the bridge, okay? Not saying it's gonna cost $20,000, but we had to throw a number out there that we thought we were gonna be covered. I had gotten a price by accident, it wasn't on purpose, it was supposed to be intent for something else, but he ended up giving me a price for it, so it gave me a rough idea of what it was gonna be. I do intend to have, hopefully that person still give a bid on it, and, looking to see if we can move forward. Right now, we are not in dire need of changing that bridge out. We're not in the red, so right now, this is a proactive move to get to the point where at least we know where we're heading. Because, too many opinions up here, nobody's a bridge engineer up here, and we like to get someone to at least tell us, well, I'm sorry, Tom.
I don't claim that anymore,
But-
especially
but,
since that bridge collapsed.
Yeah, okay, but we have to get moving forward at this point, and if not, we're just gonna keep beating this dead horse, and we have to do
I think
something.
proactive is the way to go. Yeah. Yep.
That's the
Okay.
reason why I put
Forward in
that
the
on
red.
there.
Do you
So
happen
is
to
this
know,
anywhere
Scott,
in the
if we
budget?
have to put funds towards?
It's under others,
Bridge
special
on
projects, others.
Irrigated? The
What
one on
was the
Milton
question?
Mills Road?
Second
Do
to
you know if
last
we happen
tab.
to have to put money into that on our
I-
side?
Second to
I've-
last tab.
I've talked to the bridge engineer in New Hampshire. I've talked to the Milton Highway Department, and I've talked to the Maine bridge engineer. And what I'm getting out of it is, the state's not gonna come in and rebuild the bridge. Neither is the state of New Hampshire. The town of Milton,
Nancy, it's not under their.
they told me this, they've got 3 bridges ahead,
Yeah.
so we're looking at over 20 years before they're gonna be able to.
Well, I didn't know if we had to prepare
where are
ourselves
the
for
bridges
extra
at?
money that way, and that's why I didn't know if that
Others.
might be part of your.
Well, that's why, what we're doing here,
Second
this,
to the last tab in your book is
this
special
engineer
projects.
is gonna give us an idea of what we're gonna have to do. Is it fixable? Or is it gonna have to be replaced? He's gonna give us cost, because these engineers have guidelines of cost and this and that, by the federal government, gives them these guidelines. So they can give us a cost on replacement or repairs.
And you don't see one of this, right at this moment, until after the engineer comes in, as one of your plans of changeover? In other words, where you have special projects, you don't see this
I'm
being
not-
one of them yet?
No, I don't, at this point in time, until I see the recommendation from the engineer that we're gonna be working with, which we're gonna put out the bid, okay? Until I see something written from him saying, okay, we can't fix it, or we can fix it, if we can fix it, this is what we gotta do. He's gonna give us they'll hopefully be able to give us rough costs, what's this gonna be. I wanna be able to come to the selectmen and the finance committee and say, this is the recommendation an expert made,
Okay.
okay? And, I just don't wanna throw a bunch of money around.
I just didn't want to surprise, say after the budget's is set, I just didn't want to surprise at the end and say, hey, we need to
Well,
come back.
see, the
meet,
problem is,
explain.
we've got here is there's too many people saying the bridge is
Right.
unpassable.
We don't need to-
I'm
I know we don't-
speaking-
I know.
I know what you're doing here, Lisa,
But we
it's
just
not right.
we just wanted you to explain what the article was for.
But I'm also
And it's to
explaining what's
get-
being said at the meetings, and this bridge is not
We don't
on the
need to
red
go
list.
there.
That isn't what I'm going there for. I was going there to find out if we had to have another meeting. If this is set,
No,
and
it
we have
won't
to
be.
have another one, we need to know if he's got the finances to do this.
We won't be doing any bridge repairs in the 1920 budget year.
Well, I mean, I can do bridge repair.
Oh, I mean, what
There's
I'm
certain
saying
stuff
is
I can do.
whatever comes back from the architect or the bridge engineer is not going to happen in the 2019 year,
Yeah.
unless it's minor.
You just minor repairs. I mean, we do have some stuff that we've gotta do, and we
major
plan
money.
on doing that this spring.
I just didn't want to surprise, like I said, having another meeting or having another responsibility that we have.
No, I mean, unless something catastrophic happens down there, but I'm going by the bridge reports and the bridge engineers, and they're saying right now that we're fine. It's not something there that's gonna fall down tomorrow morning.
All right,
So-
Roland had a question.
Okay, Roland?
We're going into
I'm ready for you.
Okay. I just want to
timeline
know
here.
which bridge are we talking
We're
about?
talking about the road bridge on the Hopper Road.
On the Hopper Road.
The canal bridge is not our
I
responsibility.
was
by
talking
your
about
house.
Milton Millsburg.
That's why.
Well, Milton
I
Mills
asked
Bridge
the
is
question.
not, nothing to do with me. That's a state bridge.
That's why I was talking.
I'm
about
talking
bridges.
road bridge in general.
Okay, I wasn't talking road bridge. I was talking our.
No, I don't wanna do any more bridges we have to, Lois.
But like I said, I just didn't want to come back, have you guys set in your budget, set in your ways, then all of a sudden you have to have another meeting on us.
Yeah, I mean, the rec
I'd
will
rather
take
you
3
guys
minutes.
be
We'll be able to make
content in
up
what's going on and what's happening, than and be able to spend your money appropriately and correctly versus having to put you guys out and everybody else, again, coming forth. Now, if it's an emergency for any of these, obviously, we're here, you've got to come back and see us. But, if it's something you guys can handle within yourselves and in your budgets, that's a whole different.
The only thing I see in my budget right now that I'm concerned about that would affect me down the road is, there's a push on Buzzell Road and Flat Ground Road right now. And if those two roads, for some reason, I wasn't able to budget, the selectmen are talking about doing an agreement with those roads, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the problem is, if those roads do become our issue, it hasn't been budgeted for.
Okay.
And that's the only thing I can see right now in my budget there that I'd be worried about. The bridges I'm not worried about. I do have plenty of money in my highways and, well, we used to call highways and bridges, road maintenance,
Yeah.
to do minor repairs.
All right, I just want to, like I said, I don't want to stress it out, and I just want to
Okay.
make sure we're set.
Thank you, Scott and David.
Thanks.
If the warrant finance has to have you back, they'll have you back for more questions.
Please come.
This is a
Please
big
come.
part of the whole.
I haven't been invited to one.
Yeah, it is.
You will be, you will be.
I imagine they will.
I'm gonna say it right up there. If my budget does not go through the way I put it in, I will be not going to any more meetings.
I'm
Because
sorry.
We gave them,
if my budget does not get forth the way I put it, the way I presented it to the town, I will not be going to no more meetings. There's no requirement for me to go to meetings.
To get your budget? That's the one thing the
That's an
state
ultimatum,
says.
Scott. And guess what? Keep to the ultimatum and you'll get $0.
Well, that's fine. I'll get my budget. And if you want to cut the roads, that's fine. You still have to plow them by state law. I'm just frustrated. Every year I go through
break
this.
now begin, sorry.
All right, thank you.
We're gonna
Thank
take-
you.
Sorry,
good
Chris,
day.
thank you. We're gonna take a 5-minute break for bathroom, water, coffee, whatever.
Hi, Chris.
Hi,
Good.
Chris is up
No
from the
microphone.
Recreation Department.
You can find Chris's budget under Others, which is the second to the last tab in your book. There is just a summary on the front page that says Others, or 3 or 4 sheets in, there's the breakdown of his budget.
And if I may, just before we get too far into this, so the rec committee, Chris came before the Board of Selectmen at last week's meeting to talk to them about possibly increasing the fees of the registration. The rec committee had talked about possibly going up $5 or $10. And one of the conversations that we had at the selectmen's meeting and kind of followed up with after the meeting is that he was able to cut his budget $3,600.
Yes.
Okay, so his budget got cut $3,600. So what we kind of recommended to him is that instead of increasing the registration fees for the kids, just flatline your budget, don't ask for an increase at all, take that $3,600 and divvy it up and, you know, give more to each sport that you have there so that there's no increase for the families. So that was discussed. I know that Dr. Williams was part of the conversation, Chris and I, but because the rec hadn't met to do that, we didn't change it in the papers, but I think that's what he wants to move forward with,
Yes,
Chris?
yes, correct.
So Michelle, can you just walk through the rest of the committee changing some numbers and then he can explain some of his ideas?
I'm sorry, what? I'm not understanding what,
So he wants to, instead of cutting the budget,
Yep.
so it's just it's the operation mainly. So the rec maintenance, you're all set with a $400 drop. You came up with that because of what?
Well, Michelle and I looked at the pricing
use,
of
okay.
Seacoast property maintenance. Who does the
So the rec
maintenance.
maintenance can stay a $400 cut, but the operation budget, I guess we want to see the 2930 that you see on that outer page go back in.
so that brings us up to on
The 12,763.
12,763.
So you're on others on the very back. The very first page, I'm just looking at the cover sheet for now. The last two lines, the 11301.
Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, I
Yep.
see. Yeah.
See that? So the
It's under others.
The negative 400 is because he's saying that Seacoast Maintenance, who manages the fields, can show a decrease there with their contract, so we
Okay.
appreciate that. But the operations, he originally cut $2,930 out of that, and that's because he cut certain sports, and they readjusted what they have for the upcoming year. But after the talk at the selectmen's meeting, instead of increasing the fee for each child to play from $20 to $30, we said, well, how do you feel about taking that money, put it back in operations, and
Will this money, do you think, offer more sports?
yeah.
Or putting the money back in will simply allow you to purchase some accoutrement like T-shirts and trophies and stuff like that?
Yeah, like this spring, instead of just T-ball, we're offering softball and as well as volleyball. But we are getting T-shirts, so instead of like trophies and whatnot, they can take the T-shirt home with their name on the back and whatnot, and possibly a sponsor from one of the local businesses as well, or 2 or 3 local businesses. I don't want to make it too tacky.
Or Town of Acton, perhaps.
Yeah.
So let me understand this so that, it's nice and clear in my very limited mind. So instead of proposing a budget of $3,600, we're gonna say 4,000, same as last year, correct?
the $3,600 one will stay the same
Stable.
because that's just the field maintenance. It's the next line down,
the operation line.
the 9833.
Will be,
What page are we on?
you're on the right page, except the bottom line will still remain 12,763
The very top page, nope, right where you were.
Right here.
instead of 9833.
That's his operational budget, right here.
all right.
Decrease of 29.
I'm sorry, I didn't see we had 2 lines there. Rec maintenance and rec operation.
Yeah, they've actually added quite a few sports this year,
Can you
and
kinda-
even last year.
About how many have you added compared to last year?
Well, we had the karate lady. This year we've offered the softball, volleyball. This summer we're gonna do like a family rec day to break up the boredom.
We did the bowling.
Bowling, we're doing bowling again. We were gonna offer swim lessons at the town beach, but
Where
that's out of the,
Down by us, you gotta dig that out.
we're trying to sell that road to Milton Mills, so we'll ixnay that.
Yeah.
But, we're trying to come up with creative ways to get more of the kids. We discussed yoga, like a mommy and me type yoga. We have a yoga lady that has insurance that we're in discussion with now.
Now, my question is, you were talking swim lessons, is there any way to work something out with the Y? For a day?
Possibly. I could
mean, that's-
do it like
that would not be bad.
like a free swim type thing they
Yeah,
have,
for a day or two during the
Yeah.
summer or something.
or even in the winter, just to get out and have the kids
Exactly.
exercise.
We used to have swim lessons down at the Boy Scout camp. What?
Well, that's probably in the same predicament down by us.
And we're thinking about doing like a family luau dance as well, and some things for the elders, just to get them out, because
16,763.
in the wintertime, everybody's
Oh, wait.
cooped up as well.
We do own a town beach, just to let you all know. It's down
That's
on-
not in the
Down
budget.
on French Street.
Yes.
The problem is with that,
16,363.
it's
Okay.
weeded. Literally.
And it's right,
Where the town dumps, I mean, the
No.
pollution site was.
no, that's on the other
It's on the other
side,
side.
Oh,
behind the old tannery.
It's actually
that's
across
good
the
to
street
know.
from the old, from the.
What you've asked us to do is to retain the minus 400
Right.
Yes,
and to retain your original second line of $12,763.
Yes, sir.
Because you're going to be paying for all these other little things
Yes.
that are necessary. And so your budget is going to be presented at $16,363. Is that correct then?
Michelle's.
I'm adding,
Yes.
I'm
We're
adding
adding it for you.
Basically,
3600 and 12,763.
Yep.
Which comes out $16,363. That's fine.
And you think that difference would make up for what you were looking to increase the kids' registration fee? That should balance itself out and still get you everywhere?
yes, I mean, the increase was only gonna be $5 originally, but then we talked about the other day about
Yeah, which
some.
we're gonna put on the agenda next
Right,
Tuesday.
so
So
I
more to
won't
come on
mention that
that.
now, but,
and you're also looking at expanding, and not just Acton kids, you're looking at,
yeah, we're gonna try to, like Milton Mills, there's kids running around town that should be doing things and stuff, so we can probably get them suckered into the rec as well.
And that's what he's gonna present to the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, which they don't know yet. I mean, if he's, the compromise that will leave the Acton rec fees at $20 and possibly do an out-of-town registration fee for $30.
Right.
Something like that. So, but
Because-
that'll be on Tuesday's agenda.
which is great. I
Yeah.
think it's great.
I think
because
that's fair, and you
we-
flatline at the same time, everybody's happy.
I do agree with him. Down over the hill, we have a lot of rugrats. And they need,
They're on every hill.
they need activity.
Yeah, but I see
And
them
to
all
get
the
them to get them involved would be great. And maybe he can look at finances. Maybe if he's got more than one child, they can work that out. Maybe if the person has, they can work that out so that maybe it's a gradual fee. If you have so many kids signing up at one fee, your next fee would be half, and so on and so forth. One family, it gets real expensive, because I had all three of mine in, and they got real expensive, because between this, that, and the other thing, it's costly. And that's why if they can work out even a gradual fee, it's better than nothing, at least they're getting the kids involved, and that's what they need today. They don't need to stay home behind everything.
I believe we do have a gradual fee for a certain number of kids. We do cap it. Because my family's quite large as well, so I would feel that pain as well.
And that's
I
kind of what.
understand.
We thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're doing
That's
a
it.
good job. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Okay, next up, Conservation and Forestry Committee.
Carl Davis, I'm the chair of the committee.
Conservation is under others as well. Tom Cashin has passed around a piece of paper with the things that they are presenting. Go ahead, Carl.
Okay, all right. Yeah, the first article is to see if the town will appropriate $250 for the Conservation Forestry Committee. This would be for copies, mailings, things of that nature. And then the second two articles, we're looking at hopefully getting a forestry plan on the town forest parcel on Town Farm Road. And Steve Bodkin is going to speak to that. What's that?
Am I up already?
You're up already. Yes, you are.
So we're on to the second article, or are we doing this all at once?
All at once, right? Yep.
Okay. Here asking about or bringing up questions that pertain to a potential forest management plan on the parcel of property out on Town Farm Road. We're looking for $3,000 to write this plan. The idea being that we've got a 156-acre parcel of property out there that's currently unmanaged, or it has not seen any woods work in quite some time. A management plan for this property would go about conducting a timber inventory to see how much timber is out there, what style of timber, how it's growing, its health, any sorts of wildlife or habitat things that are going on with the property, and then bring back goals from the town as to what it would like to see happen with this piece, how to make it grow better, you know, what the town may or may not like to do with this piece. So the idea being is we conduct a few meetings within the Conservation Commission with you know, the public available to try to bring about some ideas of goals of what we should do with our different town forests. And then when I'm out there doing an inventory on the property, you're looking for all these different assets that the property has, and then the management plan is something which is a working document that goes forward in time for what the town may like to do.
Now, I know, Steve, you get a stipend. How much is your stipend per year?
Well, I'm looking at the third article down here, and it shows the stipend is $538.
How long have you been getting the $538?
Well, the number I think has changed since it's been started, so I haven't followed that number through each year, like incrementally.
How long have you been getting a
It's been at least 10 years. It's been $500, the $38 is taxes.
About 202.
What is the reason for the stipend?
The stipend is primarily for me coming in and doing work within the planning board as well. So when I'm coming in and having Ken ask me questions about, well, is this harvest too heavy, or pertaining to work within the town? And the town has had different timber harvest ordinances than the state for quite some time. So what's happening is I'm being called in to try to do some measurements and things like that that are over Ken's head with regard to, you know, is this person in compliance? You know, how close are they to what the state regs are? And lately we've had a lot of talk within the planning board on revising the town timber harvest ordinance to become more congruent with the state's timber harvest ordinance, and that has taken up quite a lot of time with regard to probably 5 or 6 different planning board meetings and 3 or 4 site visits within the last year alone. So essentially it's kind of like a retainer per se for a lawyer, so that should someone ever call up and say, you know, if Ken comes in and says, you know, we think that this property itself is not in compliance with the timber harvest ordinance, you then have to go to someone with a license in order to say, is it or is it not in compliance?
How often does that happen?
Well, again, I would probably say 2 or 3 times a year I get called into the planning board for these things for non-rule changes alone.
And you say we've been paying you this stipend for at least 10 years?
Yep. Yep.
It was originally established when they did the Hebo cut, because we needed a forester.
Right.
I also, if recollection serves me correctly, it's also a requirement of the law. I think we have that.
I'd have to see the,
Yeah, I'd have to go back, but that's my recollection.
because I know Kenny has told me before, because I've had questions for him, and he told me that it is part of the forestry department to deal with.
We started that in about 2002.
I have a question to ask you.
Yep.
I have no problem with the stipend. In fact, I wonder, as much as you're talking about having to be called back and forth to answer questions, et cetera, that after 10 years or 15 years with inflation, $538 is enough. My question is, tell me about the $3,000. Is this for legal fees that's normally for a lot that's 150 acres or whatever?
No, what the town has certain larger parcels of property that we're trying to manage as part of a town forest.
Yes, sir.
So the property itself, the plan is used to do more in-depth study of the individual property. So the stipend itself is something completely separate from this woods harvest plan, or excuse me, this management plan. This is specific to a certain lot and trying to say what would the town like to do with this piece versus do we have enforcement concerns that I help the town with, whether it be for rules or for something to that effect. So the plan itself is for this one specific piece, which has been unmanaged for quite some time, to again say what do we have out there and what might the town like to do
So
with it.
this is footwork that has to go out there
Yes,
and look at the habitats and the ecological
exactly.
manifestations.
Yep, And what you end up back with this is there are different variants, different levels of forestry plans that you can provide. I can go out there and I can straight up do an inventory which only measures trees, obviously, for example. But if you start to widen the scope of things and say, the town is looking to manage not just for commercial timber, but we're looking to manage for recreational potential, wildlife issues, habitat issues, and these sorts of things. So you end up with a document that's, pushing 30 or 40 pages by the time you're done when you're considering soils and everything. So basically, the $3,000 is a number that we feel is available and enough to do the hourly work in order to produce this plan, in order to educate the town to say what the town might like to do.
And so this is a one-time expenditure?
Yes.
It's
Okay.
like a special project outside of what your
special
typical
project.
stipend.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
that makes it clear for me.
Thank you for explaining that a little better. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
And the other question I have is if you find that it is harvestable, which end of the road do you intend to use?
Well, number one, that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves at this point. So
Because I know how that works.
we have had talks within some people coming into the Conservation Commission meetings, and I'll say straight up, that is putting the cart before the horse right now, because I have two things happening. I can tell you right now that there is probably, just from an initial walkthrough up and down the roads and having walked the property before, you've probably got an asset out there, just to give you an idea of scope of things, there's probably somewhere around $100,000 worth of timber out there as it stands. So if you were to look at it and say, would one spend a few $1,000s once every 20 years in order to know how to better manage $100,000 worth of timber, and that's not counting even the other values that we value on this piece, the wildlife, the habitat and such, then it kind of gives you an idea what the scope of this project entails. So I don't presume, even though I know that the property has growing wood, the property has some wood that can be harvested, the property has wood that can be harvested to improve the woodlot, I can't presume until I know what the townspeople themselves within the Conservation Commission and working its way back up to me has in goals as to how it wants to manage this property. So while I agree with you wholeheartedly, there's wood out there that can be thinned and create revenues to do so.
What
I
does the
don't want to
town
stand
intend to
here
do
and
with the
presume
revenue?
to tell you that we're going to go out there and do
Goes
this
back
work.
into the reserve account.
Forestry fund. It tells you right here.
I do have a question for Michelle before we get too far off. This may just be something that I've misread from the email that we had back and forth on Thursday, but there was a wording that I had in that one that I thought hit our email trail, but I don't see in this draft as potential on this, toward that end.
I didn't create that draft.
Oh,
so-
okay.
Well, that draft came from the warrant. That's
Oh,
the
okay.
copy and pasted document that I showed you.
Okay, so the
Friday.
latest document that we had included the $3,000 number, everything else was the same, but the Conservation Commission came back on Tuesday and wanted to insert the word "any potential" from would be the end of the third line of that second article, just to simply say, again, we're not presuming that there's work to be done until we've seen the plan and know what the town would like to do.
As well as any potential.
We'll make the change.
So however that might work, I don't want to upset the apple cart for the process here,
no, no.
but,
Quick question, is that, and this will go to you too, Lois, I think, isn't this the same parcel that was harvested about 10 years ago, where there was a lot of damage done to cemetery?
No.
That was down at the Hebo
That was a
High
different
Boat.
one. That was the Hebo High Law.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, all right.
But there is 5 cemeteries on that
There
out there.
are cemeteries up in there.
Yes,
the way I understand the harvesting history of this piece to have been done last was back by Girton around Girton's tenure, back around in the early 80s, as I understand it.
That's how fast 10 years go.
Right.
When you're my age, right?
But there are cemeteries on both ends, so.
And again, what we had done, just to give you a little bit of a backstory, I had done a lot of research within the Conservation Commission to look at different grants that the state has trickle-down money through from the federal government to help pay for some of these things. The problem is that grants from the federal government are extremely cumbersome, required in-kind donations from townspeople such as yourselves to, say, for example, Michelle would have to be one who would completely run the money handling of this. There would need to be different spreadsheets created, recommendations from conservation commissions, recommendations from town selectmen, and the process was so great that we didn't feel that, A, the project and the monies that they had available for this really fit what we needed, and that the Project Canopy, which is the name of the grant structure, really had more to do with urban tree planting than it does for rural timber management. that our parcel didn't quite match, and the process behind trying to ask for that money would be larger than the ability to even, I can produce the plan, the exact same plan, but it would cost twice as much to have the infrastructure if we did it within the grant process as to doing it without the grant process. So that's why we came back and just simply thought if we took care of this in-house, it would, have less.
You do know that the roads are closed, right? That road is closed. It's been closed since the mid-'80s.
Well, and again, this is all something that comes to light within the plan itself. The timber is inventoried, the assets of the property are all put within this plan, and any legal information that we have regarding the ability to use the road, not use the road, its quality, and what direction one would prefer to do these things in is all something that comes out within the plan. And before anything is directed to happen, we then come back and say, here are the recommendations, and then we choose to either do something or not, or do something different.
If this is approved, how long will it take you to get your plan presented to the rest of us?
It would be somewhere around probably the end of summer, fall. I mean, again, if you're looking at this not being approved until June, then you're talking really, fall, winter to have anything like that happen and the plan be completed. It would take a few months to put together.
I just have one question of Ms. Romney. This is the same fund that is renewed every year, is that correct?
Correct.
This is the fund from which we took monies for Goat Hill?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure.
Up next is the cemetery committee. Found also in others, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And Lois,
Hi, guys.
109
Lois has passed out a worksheet.
To be honest, I wasn't
$50
supposed to be your
increase.
speaker. Somebody else was supposed to, but he called me at last minute and could not make it. And I would have preferred him to be our speaker, but it is what it is.
That's the guy from Chapley?
Yes, it's Steve.
Nice guy.
Steve is actually, for him, if it wasn't for him, there's a lot of stuff that would not be done. And I have to give him a lot of credit. I mean, the man took me all over the place. He's actually got volunteers for us and took us where I never thought we'd see it again since my aunt's gone and Catherine. So that shows how long it's been proceeding. So I don't know what questions you all have. I gave out what I've gotten and what I have.
Ms. Michaud?
Yes.
Wet and forget solution for somebody who's not keen about that. Tell me what that is.
It is actually, what you do is, to clean the stones themselves, there
It's
is
a
a
stone
spray.
cleaner. It's a stone cleaner?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, I'm confused here. We've got,
Well, I gave you a maintenance list of what we would like to have, because I'm limited. I went up more than 1.5. I went up a whole $50 versus $32 and some change. Sorry, guys. Our budget was actually last year $27.50. So now we've gone to 28. I myself would have liked more because there's a lot more out there than what we ever had potentially. But Steve thought this would be a little bit fairer because this was the first year we actually went out and did inventory. We are still missing 5 to my knowledge that we haven't gone out and seen.
5 cemeteries?
That we're missing, that we haven't gone out and seen, to my knowledge. Now, that being said, both of us have gotten phone calls and said, hey, I have X, Y, and Z in my backyard, so we have to go see X, Y, and Z in the backyard. And Kyle is one of them.
How many cemeteries total?
Right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Over 80.
Ma'am?
Over 80.
83.
There we go. That's my other cohort in the
Less
department.
the number that she alluded to that we have not.
83 plus 5.
Plus at least 5, yes.
At least 5.
At least 5. And a lot of them are out on, unfortunately, some are out on Town Farm Road. Some of them I've gotten to, but there's one big one that's actually on both sides, and there's another one out off in Peck Road that we need to go and see, which is between Peck Road and Sanborn Road, so it's gonna
So
be
how much of an increase is this year?
$50.
$50? And you've done all of this work over the last 2 years?
over the last year and a half, yes.
You are to be commended.
Good job.
okay, on your second yellow page here, you've got a total of 4,250, and
Well, we have some of that that's in there that we can't trust. We have six trusts that we have to maintain and take care
so
of.
these are additional funds and this is...
Yes, these are actually to take care of the 100 and some odd veterans we have that aren't in trust.
Wait a minute, say that again?
Oh, wait.
We have probably 100 plus that are not in trust, In other words, we have 6 cemeteries that are in
There are no
trust.
funds to take care of.
Exactly. And by state laws and standards, because it's a state statute and it's mandated, we have to maintain on any veterans there is out
Okay.
there.
So
The
this
only
budget
reason-
here is including some trust funds that you
Exactly.
take every year.
And the only reason I wanted to go up more is so we could do more maintenance on the veterans' stones that we haven't gotten to. I have 3 more members that are actually out of Shapley. 2 of them are a team, and they actually hit one good-sized cemetery, and it's taken them 3 months just to find the stones, to put them back where they're supposed to be, and this is a veteran cemetery, to maintain and take care of. Our other goal was, we were hoping this year, that we could actually get what they call a utility trailer, where we can put, like, we have, right now, we only have 1 lawnmower, so obviously, but we would have liked to bought another lawnmower, some weed whackers, shovels and stuff that goes with doing this. Like I said, unfortunately, this is how it's presented. We were asked to do basically a flat line. And if you guys can't afford the $50, I'll write a check today. I just figured I offer, it isn't even a percentage of taxes, to be honest, but, you know, Steve felt that was fair. I just gave you a rough estimate on the second page of what it's actually running us. We've actually ordered 1 set of flags, but according to what Steve has told me, I need 2 more reams, which is another 288 flags.
They sell them in reams?
Yeah.
What is Get and Forget solution?
That's actually something, it's a cleaning solution
Stone
that you put on
cleaner.
the stones.
That you put on the stone to prevent, like.
You can
lichen-
actually, instead of us going along and trying to scrape down every
remove
stone.
lichens and.
Remove lichens,
Exactly.
moss, et cetera, et cetera.
I understand. Thank you.
So we spray it on,
Yep.
come back a month later, and 95% of everything is gone.
Huh.
And it saves us, actually,
Toxic,
it
right?
saves us a lot of headaches and heartaches, because by doing this, we don't have to worry about ordering a new stone. We don't have to worry about who's there. The problem we've got are the broken stones that we have. And especially if they're veteran stones, we try to piece them back together.
Right.
And do the best to our ability to save money. We have a family in town that goes back probably 10 generations, if not plus. They have their uncle and their great-grandfather plus buried there. Unfortunately, they're field stones. We'd like to turn the field stones into regular stones. That's one of our goals. Unfortunately, the stones are not cheap. If you can get them through the Veterans Association, that's fine. We do well. But if you can't, you have to order them, and usually we go up. We've been known, there's a place up north, a little bit farther from here, they'll do them for about $1,000 a piece. And we were thinking if we could get it on both sides, it'd be great. In other words, save money on buying separate stones. We could get maybe 1, but it's still expensive. And it's something like we did last year to the Watson Cemetery. Their family got together and they had a celebration over at the Watson Cemetery. I don't know if anybody made it. No, I know Ed did. Unfortunately, he's gone. I guess it was a great turnout. I think Virginia recorded it at that point. I've never heard such a positive reaction, and people that came out for this was amazing. It was just amazing.
I want to thank you and Steve for all the work you do.
You've done a great job.
Steve has busted his tail. We have a lot of volunteers. I give
Yeah, so I was
credit
gonna say, and
all
the
the
volunteers,
volunteers.
yeah.
Because the volunteers he's actually found to maintain the cemeteries we can't get to has been great.
Thank
I
you
mean,
for that.
and he's got a list and a half of them. If anybody else wants to volunteer, I'm always open to that.
Okay,
We'll direct him your way. Thanks again.
Thank you. Anybody else? So I'm all set. Thank you.
Health, welfare, dams, public safety.
All right, so where are we at, Michelle? This is,
Health and Welfare is Department 103. There is a whole budget worksheet that has everything all together rather than flipping back and forth. That might be easier at this point. It's the second page in at the front of your book.
Second page.
Yes. And that's the whole budget, so it's got everything there.
so this is essentially what we have left to go over, right? Is all the
Right.
Municipal management, so at least if you're okay with it, this is, we can just start going down through that, because everybody that's come before you has come, other than the local, in-house, like code enforcement, treasurer, and myself, so we can just go down through this
Okay, and
Is-
hit that as we.
Yep, hit that
okay.
as we go. So you should be looking at a page that says 1 at the bottom. It says FY 18-19 budget worksheet. And the first one thing you should see is Selectman Secretary. So it's literally the second page in from the very beginning.
Are we gonna do health and welfare
It's
first?
in here.
No, we're gonna hit it as we get there.
As we go down?
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, I'll let you start them off.
Governing body, that would be your selectmen. They have proposed no wage increase this year. We have left,
What is their
Wait a
normal
minute,
wage?
what are we doing? I thought we were doing health and welfare.
We're
No.
going to,
We're gonna get
It's
it.
mixed in here
We're
in
gonna put
general
them all
government.
we're
together.
gonna hit it as we go.
Okay, thank you.
What is their normal wage?
Where are we?
Nothing?
So page 1.
Page in.
Is that normal wage? You said it, they decided not to go up. What
It's
is
the
their
second
normal-
page in the whole chickabang,
On here.
right there.
the,
Yep, I got it.
Thank you.
So what's the question?
I asked what their normal wage would be.
$9,100 each. So $2,730 for the three of them.
Does the chairman get more? or-
No.
I thought that
You used to.
the selectman secretary was Miss Rue.
It's the town administrator, it's down further.
Does that include on the job description? the
Oh, I'm
selectman
sorry,
sec-
that amount is, it should be on the line above. The 27,300 should be on the line, nope.
Now I'm confused.
Oh, no, no, no.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, you got
So
it right.
No,
is
it's in
Selectman
the,
secretary is 0 because that's part of the town
Yeah.
administrator, which is down
Okay,
further.
okay, that's my question.
so elected official, the following after that should not be there. There's a dash there.
Where's that?
Second
Well,
line.
that's right,
Oh, the
elected
elected
official,
official,
selectman
selectman
salary,
salary.
that's right.
Oh, does it say? Okay.
Yeah, it says selectman salary,
Yeah.
so that's right,
Yeah,
that's the 91
okay.
each.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so social security, benefit. So the next one, the gym, we've left that the same, 3,700 for the heat and the electricity, no changes there. The next one is the office assistants. So this office position, last year it was at 42,600, going up 46,300. So it's an increase of $3,700. These are for the 2 office assistants in the building, that cover, everything that could be upstairs. I mean, this is the deputy town clerk, tax collector. This is the person that does all of Michelle's filing and stuffing envelopes. These are the 2 part-time employees that we have upstairs.
They report to you and to Michelle.
Correct. Yes.
And do we have the monies that were spent for fiscal year 17?
Yep, you
For
want to,
that?
for that line?
Yes, ma'am.
You have yours?
For-
What's been spent out? I mean, it should zero
No,
itself out.
he's asking for last year's.
For last year's, yes.
I don't have last year's with me now.
Has there been an increase?
Would it be in here?
Oh, it may be in
Are
this
you, I guess I'm confused. You're asking if there's an increase in the salary? Because there is, you can see
salary
that.
or positions, monies expended.
No,
for-
last year, it's
Office
always been
assistant.
2 positions.
Okay,
One of them is eligible for insurance and works between 35 and 40 hours a week, depending on what we have delegated to her.
so we have another 15 or 20% added on because of benefits? Okay,
And then the other person only works 20 hours a week and does not get any benefits,
because she's only part-time
because she's only
officially.
part-time.
Okay, so only 2 people?
Correct.
It was 2 people last year?
Correct.
And 2 people the year before?
Correct.
Okay, except that one now has obtained benefits from.
She has had benefits since she started here, so.
I see,
yeah.
okay, that's fine, thank you.
There's been no real change on that line.
Perfect,
The increase is just based on their hourly increase.
gotcha.
And an increase of hours, we did increase.
Yes.
So she, okay, so, is this person also getting an increase in salary base?
She will get, depending on performance evaluations, she will get up to $1 raise after town meeting.
She's hourly, not salary.
Hourly. They're all
Okay,
hourly.
They're all hourly, I see, okay, thank
50
you,
cents to $1, depending on the performance evaluations.
okay.
Warren and Finance, clerical, I was gonna actually ask Michelle about this, so they never use this?
Yeah, they have not used this yet since it was put in, no.
So I don't know what the thoughts are.
Are we keeping some sort of a fund? I hate to
No, it
even
goes back
bring
in
up
the
that
general
word.
fund. But this is the same that it has been, years ago, the Board of Selectmen at the time had an employee, they sent an hourly employee to the Warren and Finance meetings to take minutes. And that's why this was originally created, so that that hourly employee could be compensated.
I would suggest keeping it in, because this year we really had a real paucity of minute taking, at least recently, because of the illness of our secretary.
So just in
Sorry.
case.
No, you don't have to apologize for your illness. So just as a buffer,
Yeah.
I did not realize we had that in place, but I think it would be nice to have minutes. You can't very well conduct a meeting and take minutes at the same time. It's difficult.
It's difficult.
All right, go ahead, Michelle.
Municipal management, the first significant increase we have is health. We're estimating at 12% increase. We also do have one employee that we do anticipate that is eligible for insurance and has not yet taken it. That employee's status is impending a change, where they'll probably have to take the insurance from the town. So there's an increase there of one more person on the plan, as well as 12% increase.
Again, I would like to ask a question, because it's left me as far as memory, in terms of the types of insurances that are offered. I know the school boards now, because we've gone over that with them in detail, but is this a competitive type of plan in terms of what sort of a co-insurance program is it? How much do you have to pay out of pocket until it kicks in? All of those details, or do they have a menu, a buffet to pick one?
No, the plan that we have stayed with the past 2 years, of course, we look at them every year, what's affordable within our budget. It's a high deductible plan,
Such as?
$5,600.
Ooh, that's sort of nowadays, unfortunately, is about the
Yes.
national average.
For family.
Okay.
The town, based on your longevity here at the town typically pays 100%. After 2 years, the town pays 100% of that deductible by a contribution to the
Health savings
health
account.
savings account.
Oh, you have an HSA?
Right.
Okay.
And as far as the coverage after you've met your deductible, it's 70/30. So it's
Okay.
it's not a terrible plan, but
But
it's
it's
not
not
the
a
top.
horrible
Yeah,
plan.
it's not a Cadillac plan, for sure.
It's not a $250 deductible like other departments.
That would be
What
nice.
companies are there in Maine that would offer insurance to a small group like this? I imagine you're limited.
We are very limited. We have gotten, every year it's different, of course, as the healthcare laws change and your state and federal officials change. We had offers from Aetna and Anthem last year. Anthem was twice as much as Aetna's cheapest plan. So we are very limited to, of course, joining the Maine Municipal Health Trust used to be a feasible option. A lot of the municipalities that are in that health trust and having that insurance are trying to get out of it because it's becoming too expensive for them to handle for their employees, though
So
it is a great plan that they
Could
offer.
this Maine Municipal Health Trust, is this similar to what the MEA offers the school department?
Right.
Okay, which is very expensive.
More expensive than what we have?
Oh, yes.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. They pay 16%, and the school board pays the rest, and their deductible, I think, is $250. Isn't that what it was? Yeah.
How large is our defined group at this point?
How many people?
Yes.
How big is the group?
We have 10 people who are eligible.
Okay.
So
We
it's
have 9 people currently on the plan.
Currently enrolled.
You are aware then, I assume, if this is a small group plan, that heaven forbid some horrible disease should fall upon somebody, that it's going to really cost a great deal of money the following years because of the outgo of monies. Is there any way that you can get in with the school board?
Why would you want to?
They pay more.
Why would you want to?
Why would you
Well, if
want
I
to?
were an employee of the town, I would want to because I think it's a better plan.
Well,
It certainly
speaking
is
as
a better
member of
plan, and
the-
it would be ideal. We have looked into that in the past, and we are not eligible.
No. It's a very distinct
I
rate.
was thinking the same.
Well,
They like the
okay.
groups as small as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, this is such a dangerous and expensive plan if you only have 9 people in the group. It's, you know, one person who comes down with something bad is really going to be a,
And as right now, how we are charged is based on a few things. So, I'm gonna use myself as an example, just because I don't wanna, I have a family of 4. My husband, myself, and my 2 children. My plan costs the same amount that a husband and wife's plan cost based on their age. So because I'm younger, I'm getting a little better of a deal. That person who is, say, over 50, is paying a little more for just 2 people on the plan. So,
and if the plan loses money
Right.
one year, then your next year's costs are going to go up extraordinarily high. I just, you know, I've been criticized for being anti-health plans, et cetera, and that's totally not true. I worry about the school because it's not in keeping with the rest of us who have to have a health plan. And I worry about you all if you only have a group plan of 9 people. That's so dangerous. Is there any other way that we can fix it so that you get a better plan?
Well, that was
And-
kind of why I was thinking the two road commissioners.
The 2 what?
2 road commissioners.
yeah, and as far as the health plan goes, any health insurance company is gonna have a minimum set, beyond what the town sets as a minimum to cover people.
Now,
The
what's
health
the
insurance
difference
company.
between the town and what their insurance is? What's the difference?
The town requires 21 hours a week, all year long. The health insurance company requires a minimum of 10.
So why did the
But you have to
town-
have at least one person who works at least 40.
But why did why did the town choose such a difference? Because of the cost or because of?
Why did the towns,
The
there-
cost of the town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because why the, for 21 versus the 10?
well, they based it on the amount of hours that the town hall was open and what, the in the transfer station. And they wanted to make sure that it was essentially as full-time as it could get within a town that's not open 40 hours a week. So 21 was just the hours. I mean,
Right.
that's been
If the
sent.
town went with 10, for example, we would potentially have 110 people on our insurance plan. Which, you
Oh,
look
yeah,
at
it's a lot of
you
money.
look at
I'm
the
not
amount of
saying-
money that we're paying for 9 people. You know, it's,
Which is better, but still, it's not large enough.
Right.
I know as a physician, when you do a capitation, they tell you do not sign up unless you have at least 20,000. Okay? That's a magic number. If you have 20,000 people in the program, then statistically, if someone comes down with cancer or someone comes down with some horrible disease, then you will be able to actuarially live with it, okay? But when you got 9 people, I would hope that there's something else that you all can do to improve your condition, because this is really,
Sick.
this is really a
It is.
disaster waiting to happen.
The only good news with that is that they have to keep those rates till the following year, and then hopefully would be something else available. I mean, that's all we can hope for if
right,
something
I
like
mean,
that
and
happens.
we're not set in stone. I mean, we have a 1-year contract with
I understand that, and
And then,
that's
you
good.
know, and we have to, every year we go out and we say, what's out there? You know, we ask our broker, we ask other brokers, local banking institutions often have something available to them. But, I mean, you
Are
know.
PPOs available? Is this a PPO or an HMO as
This is
far
a
as?
POS.
Ma'am?
POS.
POS.
Now, what's the contribution for each employee? What are they paying?
It varies, based on the current personnel policy, it varies. The first year, the employee contributes 15% regardless, up until they've reached a longevity of 10 years. And the town's contribution to the health savings account, the first 2 years, it varies. The first year, it's, I want to say it's 25%, and the second year is 50%. I can't recall off the top of my head what the most recent policy says, but
25% of what?
the deductible.
Of the deductible, thank you.
Yeah, what they'll contribute to the health savings. But, so typically, each employee is contributing 15% towards the premium of the plan. The
Now-
town is paying 85%, as it's currently written in the policy, and these things, as we look at budgets, are probably going to have to change. The town covers 100% if you've been employed for 10 years or more.
Now, is that 100% of if they had their entire family?
Yes, family or a single plan.
So there is no difference if, say, for example, you said that you have a family, so the employee contribution, they have to cover 15%? Is that what you're saying?
The employee pays 15%.
And then they still cover the family. There isn't a different amount if you're adding your family
No.
of contribution? Okay.
I
Private
thought-
industry, a lot of times, that's not the case.
I'm thinking back, because Nancy and I were the first to negotiate one of these contracts a number of years ago for the town, and I thought we had 13 in the group at
You
that
did,
point
but
in
you've
time.
lost people in the process of.
Well, the Board of Selectmen over the years, since I've been here, I can tell you that when I first started, the Board of Selectmen got health insurance.
So I said you
And
lost
Right,
they-
we had health
They chose
insurance.
not to. The road commissioners also had a health insurance, and you can go back to a town meeting where they actually, one of the two of them anyways, made a motion on town floor to remove the health insurance.
Okay.
Exactly.
So so there have been more, and these haven't been cuts the selectmen have made,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, that's fine.
We could
Just-
talk about health insurance all day. Let's move on to the next one.
Yes, I just hope you can find something else that's better.
They do too.
No, because
For
at the
your
time you
sakes.
two
Right.
took over, we had to have a percentage of so many.
What's that?
At the time you two were there, we had to have a percentage of so many.
Right.
Right.
As they
Right.
progressed and went on, they could change.
Right, right.
All right, so that was health insurance, Michelle.
Going down to longevity and employee benefits, that includes our contribution to the main retirement system. Our percentage rate has gone up slightly.
What number is that, please?
Where is that?
102,502.60.
Okay.
And we also have
Thank you.
people who have met thresholds to start receiving some longevity benefits that previously didn't.
What does the longevity benefit include?
I got it right here.
So the longevity benefit, there are a few things. It's 100% paid health insurance is one of the things of longevity. The
Policy.
Yep. And cashing out vacation. So after 5 years of employment for the town, the employee may cash out to up to 1 week of accrued PTO at the end of the calendar year. After 8 years of employment with the town, an employee may cash out up to 2 weeks of accrued PTO. After 10 years, the employee may cash out up to 3 weeks of accrued PTO.
How many weeks of vacation are they getting?
That differs depending on how long they've worked
Yeah.
there as well.
Exactly. We are paid we are all accrue at different rates based on our term of employment. I've been here for 14 years, and I think what it comes down to is 4 weeks vacation. If we were breaking it out into vacation and sick time, be 4 weeks of vacation, 1 week of sick time is what I accrue.
So basically, the policy says that, so paid time off, which can be for vacation, sick time, personal reason or anything, it's accrued based on the following. So from the date of hire to 1 year, it's .039 times the hours worked. After 1 year, it goes up to 0.58. After 5 years, it goes up to 0.77. And after 10 years, it goes up to 0.96. So, but I think that even at the 40-hour employees, it caps off, it's right around 4 weeks.
Yeah.
No, there's no pension involved with this.
No.
No.
You were under Social Security completely.
Well, we're under Social Security, we are covered by, we just joined the Bain retirement system last year.
You did?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is, it's a defined plan. So, the town contributes, I can't remember.
Is that in here?
It's in the personal
Yeah,
policy.
that's part of that other employee benefits, the main
Okay,
pers.
that's fine.
Yeah, so, I do have a breakdown here of what our rates are up to, but.
I've happened to look at Maine right now is relatively good in terms of actually financing their pension system.
Yes, and then,
We're 15th out of 50, which is good.
and they're looking ahead, so they see these, these problems coming up, and they're looking ahead. I went to a meeting, which doesn't affect us too much because, as far as what it's going to cost the town,
Yes.
because we contribute, the employees contribute at 8% of their earnings, and the town will be contributing at, well, for the regular municipal employees, at 7.3% of our wages. And then when we retire, it's not what was put in, it's your 3 highest paid years multiplied by
Formula.
however many years you've been in there, and so we have a defined rate. We, when we leave, we know what we're gonna get.
Defined benefit plans.
Yeah.
So we're not Illinois and we're not California,
No,
but at the same time, we're not North Dakota or Alaska that has 100% payment in their pension system. But we need to watch that carefully because we're in for some really, really bad fiscal times ahead as far as states and being able to have a system that continues to work.
right.
Here's your main PERS contribution bill.
The next 5 lines have all pretty much stayed the same. The office supplies, postage and meter rental and use of that, cleaning supplies, heating fuel for the town hall, and the employee training for the Board of Selectmen or other boards, those all have left the same. We've left those all the same because over the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, there's enough in there, up or down a little bit for anything that should happen. The membership dues went down $100, and that's just based on what Maine Municipal sent us.
The membership dues for what?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
MMA.
MMA.
Membership dues.
Okay.
So it's MMA and SMS, I can't remember what it's called now.
Southern Maine Regional Planning Commission,
Yeah, they keep changing the name.
SMPC, yeah.
Yeah.
RPC or something like that.
And so based on what they say that our dues are gonna be this year, that's the number adjusted.
The computer repair and maintenance line, $3,000, staying the same. Some years are better than others with that one. We did just have to replace our server this year, just actually last Thursday it's been replaced, and we have found out that 2 of our computers are over 7 years old and not going to be compatible. We have them up and working, and luckily we haven't had to spend any of that money yet, so you're going to see a purchase order for 2, just the towers, one for deputy code enforcement, that one's 7 years old, and one for one of the offices upstairs. But that's still only
Are they
1,100.
at end
But
of
that will be able
service,
to be-
or,
They're not compatible anymore with, I mean,
but does that mean that they're not gonna service it anymore?
No, it means they
It
need
means
to
that
be
the computer
replaced.
can't be used with the
Replaced.
server.
Right.
So you
on
gotta
our server,
replace
so it has to be like the
Oh.
server that
Server's
we
been
have.
upgraded, but the computer can't handle it.
Right, and it has to have a minimum of like Windows
What year
10.
is it?
I'm sorry?
What year is it?
The
27?
one is what he told me yesterday was one was 7 years old and one was 9.
Okay.
It's the operating system primarily.
Right.
And the one upstairs isn't a dual core, so it doesn't, the speed to get through the transactions, so, I mean,
That will
and
be
we
covered,
get.
that will be covered by this budget right now.
Yes, yes, and we
Okay.
get them rebuilt for, $400 or $500, we get them at cost through our guy, so.
Okay.
So legal expenses, 8,000, we're gonna stay within that. Where are we at on our legal line this year? Are we close, or?
No, I mean, as far as upstairs, no. I know the land use legal line is out of control, but,
Can I ask a question about a line in the town report? I noticed for legal expenses for Burke and Clegg on the Goat Hill piece. Now, were all of the legal expenses involved in setting up that trust and the whole transaction?
that,
Was the town's responsibility, I
So-
assume?
so we didn't pay Waterman, who owned the piece of property. The money was paid to
Burke and
Burke and Clegg, who had the closing.
It went into a real estate account, so
Right.
those aren't legal fees, it looks like. It's the transfer money going in and out.
Oh, so it was to Waterman?
Yes.
Yes.
They put it in a real
I thought
estate,
that was a little
they put it in a real estate holding account, and then they cut Waterman's a check.
I
It was a
understand.
very complicated transaction,
It was.
but it did not cheat us, I don't think at all. We have no reason to believe that.
Next line
Enabled Gordon.
is the audit, that stays within the budget where we're at.
Yep, we're in,
Year,
this, next year will be year 3 of our 3-year agreement with them.
drug testing, $2,000, that seems to be a good number for
Is
our
this
new.
only with CDL
This is
people?
only with CDLs, only with CDLs, that's what we're allowed to do by law.
Do we have anything if there is an accident that appears to be?
We have a, let's say, 40-plus page document. One of the policies on the website is the
Yes.
CDL drug testing policy, and it spells out every single thing from if there's an accident.
How many
All the way
people
through.
actually qualify for that? Just Scott and David's team, or does the
Yes,
fire
no,
department?
fire and rescue is exempt
Got
from
it.
drug testing.
Reason?
That's,
They're
they-
exempt from being required to
to have
have
a CDL.
Oh,
They don't have to have a CDL to drive it, so. These are road guys that, so basically the road commissioners, because not all of the employees are CDLs, so when they start the process for new employment and they come to us, based on what their job is gonna do, we make the determination of whether or not they're gonna go in the drug pool, we do pre-testing, and then of course we do random testing,
Gotcha.
and if there's an accident, there's a process in place, assuming we find out about the accident when it happens, that I would follow up on and we would deal with on the spot.
Now, I know it comes as a pick of the hat, but say if they keep picking the same hat all the time, what?
We
what about the ones that
outsource.
don't get
we-
one?
Well, we
I think they're
outsource
in
to a
another
company,
pool.
yeah, called LexisNexis. We're in an actual pool with other with other companies. So, I mean, but it is, it's just how they pick it.
Okay.
So,
I was just curious about the ones that don't get picked.
but they never know when they're gonna get picked and they're never gonna know when they're gonna get called. I have a process in place that's very, very random, so they don't, it's
Why
just
no?
the pick of the hat.
Pick of the hat.
Deed transfers, this went down, Michelle, because,
This went down because the York County Registry of Deeds has allotted us free copies every month.
oh, that's right, online.
So they no longer send us deed transfers, we have to go online and get them.
So we should put that $200 in paper.
Exactly.
Then we have to print them all off ourselves. Filing fee and discharge fees, that's when we file the
Question,
actual lien.
a
Oops, sorry.
question. As far as deed transfers, is there any mechanism that we have in place now where there's a deed transfer as far as making a new map of the property and having that registered?
Yep, so, well, it's not registered, but what happens is our assessor, when he comes here once a month, he gets all of the deed transfers from the month before.
Okay.
And he goes in and he updates the addresses and adjusts the homesteads or the veterans exemptions,
Yes.
anything that's on there. Before April 1st of every year, he's
Yes.
kept an ongoing list that he sends all of those deeds to Cartographics, who's our mapping company.
Okay, so
They go out.
you have a mapping company. It's
We have
all
a
in
separate
one
mapping company, yep, and they go
Perfect.
out and plot them, determine where the building is
Yes.
on the property, and then the maps get updated just once a year.
Perfect, thank you.
One other question on these, are the deed transfers, they're not coming to you on paper, are they accessible to the members of the public?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay,
You type
so
in
where
York-
would I go to?
York County Registry of Deeds, if you type that into Google, you
Okay,
can,
okay.
set up a username and password, but it's free to the
Very-
public.
It's right on the
very
registry.
user-friendly. I
Yeah, they
use it
give
all
you
the
a certain
time.
amount of copies a year for free.
Yeah.
So we just keep creating
Okay.
new username and logins.
The cartography and all of that, is that listed in here?
I know we'll get to Cartographics, we're
I'm
not
sorry,
quite there, no,
okay.
that's okay.
That's fine.
So lien filing and discharge, that number stays the same, and, that's one of those numbers that's kind of hard to budget based on how many liens we think we're gonna file that year. Our alarm system maintenance agreement, that stayed the same. Michelle, contract deputy increase.
Contract deputy, and this is an estimate. We are charged now by actual expenses, so we don't pay a fee at the beginning of the year. We pay quarterly by actual expenses, what was paid to the contract deputy in salary, what was paid to put gas in his vehicle, pay insurance on his vehicle, those types of expenses. So this is, the 48,560 is an estimate given to us by the finance director at York County of what we can expect for the next year.
So we pay for the deputy entirely. The county sheriff does not put any money.
Shapley pays the other half.
I knew that. And Newfield didn't work out, is that right?
The sheriff hasn't moved forward with that plan.
No.
Okay, so between the two towns, they take care of the entire salary.
Correct.
Yes, other than his overtime for extra shifts that he picks up outside of Acton.
In Alfred, okay.
Yeah.
My other question is, after having spent half the money, and I think Shapley the other half, for a beautiful new car, I'm very, very dismayed that the door has, in large letters, Sheriff of York County, when it should be Acton Shapley Police Force or something.
Well,
It
there
says
is
Acton Shapley on the side.
Little bitty print. I mean, that came from the taxpayers of this town and the taxpayers of Shapley, and I'd like to see that on the door rather than York County, because it's not one of their cars.
I'll email the sheriff, see if I can get those letters bigger.
I think you're right. I never noticed that.
So the county didn't pay for that car at all?
No,
we
the car belongs to the towns, but it is a uniform car to go along with all of the other ones, and I'm sure that's where the lettering came from, but that's a point.
Okay.
All right. So the electricity, telephone, where are we? Yeah, electricity and telephone, the drop on the telephone is because we were able to renegotiate with a new company this year, and so there's savings there. Town hall building maintenance, so $25,000, we've had that amount now, I think, for the last 4 or 5 years. Michelle can tell you what comes out of that, from lawn care to...
lawn care to cleaning to shoveling, your furnace maintenance, furnace repairs, the electrician coming in to set up an outlet, your plumber coming in. It can be a series of,
Encompassed.
yeah.
It's all within the building.
You say shoveling, you mean snow removal?
Yeah, the
Yes.
gentleman that does all of our walkways
Yeah.
and,
Okay.
which, how are we doing on that line? We really need to look at buying him a small snow blower. I mean, God love, I mean, he does, I mean, not only does he do the front, but he has to do every exit, and by the propane, he shovels it all by hand. I mean, if this line looks all right by the 1st of June, it
No,
might be
it
a good
looks
time to
good.
buy him a
Yeah.
used snow blower. I wouldn't shovel that by hand, would you?
2 feet of snow?
2 feet of snow,
Right.
he's a trooper. He comes and takes all the trash, he changes the
Who
sign.
does that? Who does that?
Jonathan Morse, the
Oh,
transfer
oh,
station
Jonathan,
employee.
okay, yeah.
All right, town report printing, we dropped that $1,000 because we just have too many every year left over. So the board's cut back on how many they want to order.
Where is this now?
I'm at one,
Printing, advertising.
0621.
Okay,
oh, sorry, I
06.
skipped property casualty. I skipped a couple of them.
yes.
Wow, I'm
Small
gonna go back
print.
up. All right, so electricity we did, telephone, building maintenance, okay, software rental, Trio. So this is the system that we use in-house to do our motor vehicle registrations, all of our vitals, dogs, taxes, personal property, real estate. This is the actual software that stores everything. And they do have an increase this year, which is $1,940.
Is that typical of other years?
No, they haven't gone up. They haven't gone up in a while. They are creating a new WebNex program that they're kind of forcing the towns into. As far as we can tell from talking to other towns in most of York County and Cumberland County, there's only one other program that they use called what is that new? Munis. And most of Munis is switching to Trio. So it's kind of, I hate to say, it looks like we're heading down like a cable company line. But for now, we're just gonna have to eat the expense and keep our program up to date. Photocopiers, no expense change there. Property casualty, Michelle?
No, we're right online there. Though we have taken on some new vehicles and buildings and so forth in the past couple of years, we've also gotten rid of a few, so it's kind of washed out.
Okay.
And town report, sorry about that, I already told you about that. The decrease based on less. Computer hardware, is the line that for any actual purchases that we need to make. Sand and salt shed, this is the amount that's left on that loan.
May I interject something, and it's perhaps not in here, but it reminds me about salt. And going back over the annual book, every year, we spend more money for salt than we allocated. And my question is, why not just give a bigger budget for the salt purchases?
Because that allows for a bigger
Bigger overdraft. So the higher your number goes, the more they legally are allowed to overdraft. So,
Based on percentage, right?
right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Not prudent use of the material.
I didn't ask
Moving
that.
on.
I didn't say
So
that.
the window loan is now, is paid off.
Paid off.
So, and the fire truck loan
Is paid off.
excellent. Goat Hill loan,
The Goat Hill loan, last year, we hadn't set the loan in place, so we were looking at what our high would be.
Okay.
And now the loan is set in place and we have a fixed payment, so we know exactly what we're gonna pay for the year, so we have an accurate number there now.
tax abatements, $4,000. This number is continuing to stay low. What have we paid out in tax abatements this year?
No, not much.
We were, we're working on our fifth or sixth year since our reval. How many years has it been, Nancy? It was 6. Since we did our reval.
Oh.
So it was about 6 years.
6 or 8.
6, right?
It's 8.
Quite a while.
Yeah,
8 years?
It's been quite a while.
So usually, the more time that goes on between revals, you start seeing your expenditure out of your tax abatement go up, because the numbers, that's an indication that your assessments might be off. But last year, so far this year,
We are at 2275, so less than half.
That's
of
good.
The budget.
the next one, the $200 write-off, that account is designed for everybody that sends their tax check less 1 penny.
Because of the next day.
Huh?
Because of the next day.
No, we accept postmark.
Yeah.
And we accept a day or two postmark, but I can only give you so much leeway.
If it's not an even number, one of your payments is 1 penny higher than the other, and a lot of people don't do that, and it will cost us more money to send a stamp and a letter saying you owe a penny.
So usually before it's time to go to lien, we print the balance of every account, we go through and ask the board to write off X amount. Miscellaneous expenses, Michelle, what are we paying out of that?
Miscellaneous expenses can be anything from a training, staff training,
A road program purchase?
a road program purchase, if a member of, an
No,
employee
I
of
wanted
the
to-
town, if a member of their immediate family passed away, we might send flowers.
Yes.
Okay.
Which we actually did for Mr. Hams, we need to move along here.
York County taxes are going up each year that we.
Yeah, and they're down here.
Yeah, York County won't even talk about a number right now. The commissioners have told the finance director to tell everybody to, if you're planning your budget in your head, to budget a 3% increase.
A 3% increase?
That will be their maximum that they will put
Can we
forward.
get health insurance through them? No, I'm not being facetious.
That is a good question. I will ask Vicky, maybe.
Because that would expand your group.
Because if their
Depending on
program
how
is
they're-
better,
yeah.
if their program is better, we ought to sign you guys up with,
Yeah.
we get nothing out of the county except a jail,
Right.
okay? And it's
And
ridiculous.
the policy
that
now, I
we
mean, it doesn't include
Jail
vision, it
and-
doesn't include
Yeah,
dental, it doesn't.
it's- yeah,
Property records.
Food for thought, something to look at.
but
It's a
look
much
into it
bigger
and see
group.
if it's
It might bring
possible,
the cost
please.
down.
Okay, flipping the page, we're on page 2 here. The next section is mine, under elections, so everything, as you can see, is staying the same. It's always hard to budget how many special town meetings we're gonna have, it's hard to budget what's gonna happen at election time. I was hoping to make this number go down, the election worker salary some, because now we're in the habit of using the machines and we got this. Unfortunately, in June, the ranked choice voting is taking place. So our machines are going to be only tabulated to do that. So if we wanted to use a machine for our hand count, I'm looking at Virginia because she's one of my election clerks.
Like I said,
If we want to use, if we wanted to use a machine to count the local races and this local marijuana question, we would have to purchase another machine because it's not gonna be able to be
Because it gets
So we will be hand
first
counting.
choice, second choice, and all of that.
So we'll be hand counting in June,
Hands are
so
good.
I'm glad I didn't cut this line. So that pretty much stays the same. Registrar of Voters, no changes in that salary either. That's, 42.44, breaks down to about $70 a week. Registrar of Voters
Now,
is,
that is one that you have as far as one of
that
yours.
is my salary, yes.
Okay,
That Register of Voters is required by state statute.
Yes.
That the board appoints, somebody that is there to register people in part, register them to vote, attends your caucuses, sets up everything at the elections.
so as far as benefits are concerned, then you have benefits under all the positions that you have, is that correct?
I have, so my health insurance is just one health insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
And the longevity is based on how long I've been in the town. It doesn't have anything to do with the salaries.
Okay,
So everything is based on the same thing, the length and the,
okay,
so it doesn't matter. I mean,
Understand.
it's not numbered up.
I understand.
All right, next one is finance, Michelle. Go ahead, that's you.
The only increase that I have proposed is office supplies, that it's checks. I don't know what to tell you, but the amount of checks that are written, seem to have doubled over the past year.
This is paychecks or checks for other items?
on the fire department?
This is less paychecks, but bills. We have a mandatory direct deposit, so there's no checks being created there, they're paper copy. There are a few that are not, just because they meet some exemption where they don't have to be direct deposit. By law, most of this is bills. I mean, we just have a lot of different companies. I mean, it used to be you dealt with, 5 or 6 companies, and you wouldn't have to cut as many checks. You could just pay all the invoices on one check, but now
Right.
we have companies. And I think in
Electric bills are
part,
split too, right?
the electric bills
you're
were
writing 2
split.
checks per
Yeah, they
building.
were split when we were with Direct Energy, yes. But in taking on a full-time fire department, and a full-time chief, he's there and he sees things that are needed, so you order them, and
I understand,
we're,
okay.
it used to not happen as often, I guess. So, yeah, the checks are just out of control.
Can you pay any bills like online or over the phone, or is that not good practice?
It's
'Cause you
not
need a
good
paper
practice.
record?
Yeah.
And for the $300, if you think about the
Yeah.
chances of your numbers, especially town numbers getting out there, it'd be bad enough if our own personal accounts got out there, but.
Eat up $300 just looking for it, right?
Right.
Any questions on the finance? All right, the next one is Tom's favorite here. This is the town administrator position.
I just have a question.
Oh, good.
So
I got
many-
lots of answers.
So many people have come to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
You have multiple jobs, and I'm not saying that that's bad or good. You're a capable person to be able to do this, but town administrator, tax collector, town clerk, and election,
Voter registrar.
yes. If you had each of these positions separately, would we be paying the same amount as we pay you for doing all 5 of them?
Yes.
You'd be paying a lot more.
And-
That's what I
So-
want you to
Yep,
say.
okay.
That's what I want you to
So
say.
let me I'm passing something out, that this actually got passed out
That's
last
what I
year,
want
but,
you to say for the television and for
Yep,
everybody else.
this one, we covered this last year. This document is from last year, and if anybody from the audience wants one, please come up. But this is last year's numbers, because we went through this same document last year, but I am so happy that you asked, and we get to go over it again. Before we do that, before we get too far, I want to just recap on 2 things, Elise. In March of 2017, without going back too far, but so that the full Warren Finance can hear it, the question came up, can the town of Acton change the position? Currently was an office manager. It started as an IT support, then it turned into office manager, then it went into town manager. Does the town of Acton have the authority to change that position without going to town meeting? And the answer from 3 different attorneys at Maine Municipal was yes. She asked me 20 questions on what I did. I gave her 20 responses, and there's a 5-page email that went around in March of 17. So that's been handled, and I would love for anybody that wants to read it to read it. Since then, March of 18, I understand there are questions, more questions have come up about this position, and one of the Warrant and Finance Committee members recently has stated that it is a direct conflict for the town clerk.
Oh, that's a misstatement.
No,
but
let me, no.
Okay, go ahead.
You wrote the email, so I have to reply.
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Yep.
So, so basically in there, in the email, it says the Warrant of Finance that's going around to their personal emails. There's another consideration in this process having to do with the fact that Jen is currently serving as both the town administrator and municipal clerk, a statutory position. Since the clerk is a primary legal officer of the town, there's a significant opportunity for conflicts to arise to emerge between the two. Valid point. Maine Municipal Manual with all of your statutes talks about all the conflicts of interest. So they aren't here, Tom. I know you like to see the actual statute and not paper. So I brought you that. But also we sent this to Sue Pilgrim, who is an attorney at Maine Municipal. My email to her, because I always like to put that out there, because often people make accusations that the way we're wording our questions to the attorney, that it might affect the answer that they come back. So I always like to make sure that you hear what I actually sent. So, good morning, legal. As you will see in the email below, the selectmen asked MMA back in March of 2017 if they had the authority to change the position of office manager to town manager without the vote of the people. After a discussion with Attorney Jensen, she agreed the board did that within their legal authority. With that now behind us, the same individual is now indicating there is a conflict with the same person being both the town clerk and administrator. Please see below. I copy and pasted it. In your legal opinion, is there a conflict for the same person to do both jobs? Jennifer, I don't see any legal issue under state law with one person holding the position of town administrator and clerk at the same time. There is no legal incompatibility of this office in your situation, as two offices are not involved. The administrator position is an employment position, not an office. I also don't see any place where the duties would conflict in a manner in such that one person could not perform both duties. Although it is outside of a legal analysis, it might be helpful for you to know that many town administrators or town assistants often do hold several positions, including that of the clerk. So the next document that I passed out from last year, can I borrow yours? Oh, I got one, thank you.
Here's an extra one.
Yep, thank you. This is last year's numbers. This is just so you could kind of see the benefit that you have in Acton by combining these positions. So in Shapley, the town clerk, tax collector, register of voters, all those things that I am, is $49,336. Shapley's executive secretary or town administrator to the board makes $55,467. Two different people. So to combine, these are last year's numbers, Shapley's paying $104,803, and that does not include 2 health insurance policies, 2 short-term disabilities for those 2 people. And dental. Lebanon, their town clerk, registrar, tax collector, because that's always the same person in these small towns, she makes $41,870. The Lebanon town administrator, secretary, depending on what the board chooses to give her as a title, makes $36,400. So together, that person makes $78,270. You have 2 different people, so once again, you have 2 health insurance policies and 2 matching PERS in Lebanon. Alfred has the same thing, town clerk, tax collector, register of voter. They actually have 2 people that fill all those positions that total $62,606. And then Alfred's town administrator makes $51,728. So what Alfred doesn't have included is now 3 health insurance policies, but all 3 of those people total $114,334. If you turn it over, you will see my salary, which did not change from last year. It did change the year before, and we're going to talk about, again, why that happened. The town of Acton pays for 1 medical and 1 PERS. Town clerk, tax collector, register of voter, deputy treasurer, and town administrator in Acton makes $74,984. That's less than every single town on there. And I would challenge anybody to question my ability to do my job or to keep up with the stuff in there.
I'm not.
Well, I know, I want to finish. I mean, it was a smart move for Acton to do. I mean, Tom, you can chuckle all you want.
I don't disagree.
Let me finish. No, it's my time, because you get to send, you get to send these emails around that I don't get to see as you talk about individuals. This is my time to answer those. The only reason that Acton changed the hourly rates for the town clerk, town administrator, is look on the back. You can see what the hourly rates were. So before we went into last year's budget, the code enforcement officer and the fire chief were making more per hour of the person that was supposed to be overseeing their departments. So they were increased. So that's where the increase came from. And that was now 2 years ago. I am not putting in for an increase at all on the positions, nor did Michelle, but those are the current hourly rates for last year, and hopefully those 1, 2, 3, 4 towns shows you a little bit of savings, quite a bit of savings anyways, by combining the positions. And just to recap, I took a little bit of notes here. Some of you may or may not know what I do as town administrator, and I'm not going to get into all the details, but as the departments went through this morning, so the fire department, the transfer station, which was the first one, you heard me mention because I'm working on the flyers that are going to be put together for his hazardous waste day. I order all of his supplies for the hand washing stuff that he needs up there. We had the cable director next. More than 50% of the slides that you see running on Channel 12 when there's no movie, I create. The fire department, I do all of his driver's checks, background checks on all of his employees. Anytime he has to go out to bid for something or we want to sell something, I do that. The road commissioners, I order their signs. They just ordered a bunch of new material, jackets and hats. I do all that for them, and of course the drug testing. The recs, we have been inundated with copies lately. We print copies off per class. We have them ready. We collate them. We put them in their boxes for them. Conservation and forest, Tom can attest that when they did the Goat Hill mailing, I created the letter with his assistant. My in-house staff did the mailing, okay? Goat Hill, every one of those documents, everything that went through me. Cemetery, we do ordering for the cemetery. We got them their GPS. I just sat with one of their members to teach them how to use the town's website.
Yep. You do more than that for us, you just don't.
That's just the recap of today of the people that's here, so. I encourage, I'm sorry. Now, questions.
Okay. I don't disagree with anything you've said. And as you know, I think I have advocated for this position publicly. My issue is, and it's not really an issue, it's recognition, and I would think it would be protection for you, is to take the position to the town meeting, and because the town,
It's not legally required.
It doesn't matter whether it's legally required, and I'm not going to debate that issue with you. I understand it's not legally required that the select board can name you town administrator. That doesn't mean that the town meeting recognizes you as town administrator. And I think that's a very important distinction, because if the town creates that position as a legal position, then you get protection out of it, and so does everybody else involved in the process. As things stand now, your position is very similar to the personnel policies, which the town, so-called town personnel policies that the Board of Selectmen adopted without going to the town meeting. So they're not town personnel policies.
They are. They don't have to go before. Tom, the thing is, Tom, I mean, I appreciate and respect you. I honestly do. But, you know, the town votes on these by individual lines. So they see CEO land use. They see town administrator. They see code enforcement. They're seeing the individual lines. We have asked these questions over and over. The personnel policy is something that's created by the Board of Selectmen in-house. It doesn't have to go. The change of position didn't have to go. There's not anything more that we can show you, but it doesn't mean that you're right.
It doesn't. It's not a question of having to go. It's a question of making it clear to the town meeting what's going on.
They're voted on by individual line items. You see their titles right there. How much more clear can it be?
Well,
Town administrator, $74,984. It's clear because we had this long conversation last year at town meeting on that line.
exactly. And so what is the position now? Okay, I think there's a position described at this point in time. I don't really know. But to go out and name a position, which the select board does have the responsibility to do, but then it's a selectman's appointment, okay? It's not a town meeting appointment, so it's not a legal position in the town as such. It is a selectman's appointment, just like our our,
Land use secretary, or the hourly employees.
all of them.
Right.
Okay, all of them. And you, well,
What's your point, Tom?
Right,
point
what-
is, meeting the legal requirement is the absolute minimum standard here. We have a town meeting form of government, okay?
Understand that.
The authority to create these positions that are recognized by the town rest with the town meeting.
And they are on the town meeting warrant individually. What is it you
So
want to
what
see,
you're
Tom?
saying
You wanna s-
basically, Tom, is that because we didn't take a warrant article to the town meeting last year, or maybe 2 years
years
ago,
ago.
that said, we are going to create a town administrator position. Does the town wish to approve or disapprove this position? Because we didn't do that, you're saying she's not legal?
No, I'm not, I haven't said she's not legal, I just said I
Actually,
disagree
did
with
you
everything she
reread
said.
the whole email you sent to your Warren and Finance Committee members? Because it does, there
I
is
take
more to
objection
it.
to that, too.
Well, we can
We're
disagree on that.
we're supposed to be utilizing the town's website.
And you
for
shouldn't be
our
talking about individuals.
communication.
I mean, this is no different than the last time we went through this, you know? Come to a
Taking
board
it
meeting,
right
let's
now.
have these discussions, let me bring the people in. You know, we have said this over and over to you, Tom, and you just don't, you don't agree with it, so you keep going after it.
And I'll tell you right now, when Jen and, when those two came into this office was a mess.
I know.
It was a headache. It was a basic
I-
a bitch
What-
to deal with.
What do you
They
want to
took
see
care
differently,
of it.
Tom? What's gonna make you happy on these positions? We didn't put any increases in, we've combined them,
Has
we've
nothing
gotten
to
legal opinions.
Has nothing to do with.
Then
the
why do
money.
you keep sending these emails that say otherwise?
I would like to the Board of Selectmen or somebody to explain to the town meeting what the job is. That's the part of the process that takes it to the town
We
meeting.
did a job
She's
description
explained, I was gonna say,
already.
you explained it several
Well,
times.
I know,
Jen has a question.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, for simplicity's sake, can we just refer to the town administrator as that's the job and get rid of all these other titles? Is there any reason?
But state statutory requires you to appoint a town clerk.
Right.
Yes.
All
That
those
is-
other positions are statutory.
But only the
They're in
town
law.
clerk?
You have to
But
have-
they did include them all. That's why you're seeing them differently. That's why last year looked like so much of a jump. Not only the jump to get
I
me
know,
to
I'm
where
not
the CEO and the
questioning
fire
that.
chief was, but they included all the salaries together.
It just seems silly to me to have somebody that's wearing 5 hats.
Yeah.
Pick one is the primary.
There has to be a tax collector
And-
to
By law.
be
Collect
responsible for the taxes. There has to be a town clerk responsible for keeping the records and running the town meeting. There has to be a deputy treasurer. Well, there doesn't have to be, but there should be a deputy treasurer, should something happen to me.
Exactly.
Which I am, and
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
compensated for.
So what do you have, 5 different business cards?
At least.
I
Depending
have
on
one
which-
that says town clerk, town administrator. I mean,
Okay.
I think, Virginia,
Okay.
what goes with each of those titles is a job description in the law. There are specific provisions in the law that the town clerk does this, the treasurer does
Yeah.
this, et cetera. So
You could-
that's why you have to include.
And
those.
several
All
years
those
ago,
job
we took it to the
descriptions
floor
are
that
We
Jen
just did
would
them, wow.
be elected anymore. She'd be
No, I'm saying
permanent
they're
put there.
incorporated into the law. There's statutory
Okay, but you were
provision.
asking the town meeting to describe what the town administrator does, and that job description's done.
Okay, and that's fine, I understand that process took place this year, and that's fine. I just think it is worth your while to go to the town meeting and saying, we've created this position, or would you create this position that does,
I don't
that
think we have
does
to ask
this?
permission. I mean, we can state it,
Just say,
just state, you know, hand out the job descriptions and, I mean, did you vote to have, what was your title beforehand?
office manager.
Office manager, was that on the town floor? Can we promote Jen from IT to office manager?
Obviously, you can, you've done it,
Did we?
and I don't,
The prior boards have, they've
Prior,
changed it
that's
over the
what I'm
years.
Her position has changed several times over several selectmen. Matter of fact, when Jen first got here, she was an elected employee. It was the
No, no.
selectmen, it was the
Well, the
selectmen.
position was elected.
Right. It was the selectmen several back that decided, instead of doing that to her, because she's entitled to benefits and stuff like that.
That's
'cause
not
that was-
why,
no, but
they
that was
changed it
part
because,
of
so it wouldn't be a personnel conflict.
Exactly.
Because in 2006, when I
It just
started,
was a mess.
there were a lot of issues. The state auditor was involved with the town clerk, tax collector, the treasurer. As you know, you remember all those stories. That was part of your days. And without getting into all of it, the cleanest thing that they recommended is stop making your town clerk, tax collector elected. This is not a personality conflict. So, you know, don't make it a matter of, Yes, that's correct.
And that went on the floor,
That gets
and
added
we
into
voted
it.
to make sure that was appointed at that point.
So the voters voted to change to make it appointed. So the Board of Selectmen advertised the job in 2006. I was not the only one that applied. They brought people in, they interviewed, and I got appointed.
I'm saying, I think it's in everybody's benefit that you go to the town meeting and explain on the floor of the town meeting, and then there's.
So why don't we do this at the town meeting? We simply, when this article comes up, we say, does anybody want to hear all of the details of the town administrator? And other than you, if no one else raises their hand, you'll let it go to rest.
Well-
Because we have these selectmen's meeting, they see it, I tried to put on a PowerPoint presentation for you the last time you continued to send these emails and make these jabs. You didn't come. I mean, I'm so willing and able and ready to explain myself if that's what, the town wants to do. But, but calling on it at a town meeting on the spot and the way you go about it and these emails behind the scene, Tom, is just not fair to anybody. You're the one that's actually taking away town dollars and resources so that now we have to spend our time gathering more information that we already gave you last year, reaching out to more attorneys just to try to show you once again that, it's, that we're doing it legally.
Maybe put this to an end.
Yes.
My only
Okay.
concern now is, I think you brought out the fact that your medical coverage is deficient. And
Okay.
I would urge that we look for other sources
Your town's
for that medical coverage for our town employees who are eligible for it. Try the county, see what they say.
Ken, you're up.
That was a great
Hands up.
idea.
Thank you.
Wake up.
So sad.
There are two lines of assessing in the middle, real quick. Assessing subcontractor, this is O'Donnell's and Associates that does all of our assessing. They come in, they do all of the assessing. Some of the upstairs office staff does data entry, so instead of having O'Donnell's change name addresses and actually pay an assessor to be here, we pick that up as part of our everyday duties. So that number is not changing, and the assessment contracted software is, Dr. Williams, this is where you find your cardiographics, you'll find your Trio, you'll find your maps online. Anything of those direct links that you can get on the town's website are all budgeted in that line.
All right.
And again, no increases.
Good.
Land use.
So we have,
Kenny, you're on.
Good afternoon. Any
Hi.
questions?
Any
He's gonna
questions?
run.
No running, Kenny.
Hey, we heard legal's a little bit out of hand, why?
Because we, enforcing junkyards all over town.
Good boy. I just figured I'd ask, that's what we
There
heard.
you go.
We don't want, rumors spreading, we just want truth.
That's right.
Mr. Paul, I'd like to ask a question about the CEO assistant. I know when we first looked at this job, one of the first questions I asked was, why isn't Ms. Charlene a candidate for the position? And they said she was thinking about retiring and she was the secretary and all that. I'm glad to see that she has taken the position. I'm just wondering, out of curiosity, is she also going to become certified in certain of the 7 or 8 things that are important?
There's 13 areas of certification. She's currently, and I encouraged her to take the job years ago, and she thought it was much more than she could handle or want.
Yes, sir.
Especially as we get a little older, we probably want less to do. She's currently has passed 5.5 of those.
Good for her.
The half is, she got an 88 on a test, but we didn't get a passing grade, so we've been asking the state why, and they just haven't got back to us. So she's already,
Well on her way.
well on her way.
And what do you
Isn't
foresee for
passing?
that position as far as the complete 13? Do you expect them to be?
No, I don't think so, because a lot of those are commercial. We don't have a lot of commercial activity, so I don't need to have her go through all that. And passing the exam's one part, then you have to maintain the continuing education for those, so she'd have to also continue with that.
Okay.
Just one of us having the commercial building, energy, and those, I think is sufficient with the amount of commercial we
So
have
you
in
would
town.
continue then to use the other person who was a house inspector, as I remember, and certified in electrical, and you would still use the CEO in Chapley in cases of emergency, or that you were going to?
We're hoping not to use somebody from another town anymore. She should be able to cover anything I need.
I see.
The electrical inspector would be if I have a homeowner doing his own stuff and it doesn't look right, I would call him in to help me, because the state is much harder to get a hold of.
Understand? Okay. I
Now,
have no
you
more.
intend to maintain some, now, you just told me that you're going around stopping or enforcing the law as far as
He's inspecting.
dumpy yards, or whatever you want to call it.
Junkie yards?
Is this going to come to a stop, or is it going to be a constant?
It's a
How
constant.
can it not stop? As long
Because
as you
people
have,
maintain the
as
road.
long as you have people running around submitting complaints, it's not going to stop. It's always going to be part of his job. It's always going to be something that he has to go look at.
Right.
And there's only a few individuals in the town that are actually doing the complaining. That's not part of the budget process. Let's move on, please.
I have one other question about boat. Do we need a boat for your office?
I think it was last year, I had an individual, I wrote a permit to cut 3 trees. I used visual, so he knew 3. Within a couple of days, I was getting complaints about him. He had cut every tree on the lot, stripped all the duff layer, the little stuff, the whole lot was stripped down clean. Access from the boat to see what they were up to, now I see him putting a boat ramp in. It cost that individual over $20,000 to come into compliance on that one site. The one photo I had from the boat of them working on the boat ramp was priceless. Besides that, it gives you a much different view, if anybody lives on the water, from what it looks like from the road and the water. 2 separate things totally whatsoever.
So are you going to reapply for a boat in your budget?
He got one 2 or 3
He's
years.
got
He's
one.
already got one.
Yeah.
He got one 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, that,
Fire
so you're
department
using
says
the
they
same
don't
one that
use
we
it as
had
much.
3 years
Yes.
ago?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I was gonna ask if you could borrow the fire department's,
Yeah.
but,
No, we,
No, they're
They
gonna
don't
sell
use it
that
as
one.
much.
okay. So you are utilizing it then because of
We didn't get a lot of time last year in it because we just had so much other priority stuff
Understand. That's fine.
to be on top of.
appreciate it, thank you.
So the only other addition you had was a secretary. How,
Yes, and that's working out really, really well. That's allowing me to prioritize on my stuff. The assistant is actually picking up on a lot of the enforcement stuff as well. And in this time, we're also now basically 100% cross-trained. If I'm not here, she can handle it. If she's not here, I can handle it. So that works out really well.
It's good.
Nancy, did you have a question?
It's been answered, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
No?
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr.
Have a good day.
brings us down to the health and welfare. The health officer stipend, we do pay out once a year. We are required to have a health officer on the books, so that's the stipend. Luckily, I think we've only had to use her once in the last maybe 3 years, but we do have her.
Is she here in Acton?
Yes, she's a nurse, a licensed nurse.
Nurse practitioner or just a nurse or
She's an RN.
RN?
But does she have to be?
By the statute, I'd have to pull it up, but she has to be a certified nurse. I don't know what level it is, but I
Okay.
know that she meets the
Is there any way
requirement.
that we can share the health nurse from the school system? They'd pay $1,000 for a nurse practitioner already.
100,000.
No, I'm not talking about the school nurse. The school nurse is making 90-something thousand with benefits. I'm talking about the physician, and they have a nurse practitioner somewhere around here that has taken on that job for $1,000 a year. And so I'm just wondering
I mean,
if
certainly-
you could put your
If the board wanted to look into that, I
and your
think that,
star on that, since we already have somebody in the
Do they
department.
have to live in Acton?
they don't have to,
No.
no, I don't believe so.
If I recall, the nurse practitioner for the school does not live in Acton?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And of course, the
I mean,
other
we've
thing
had
is,
the same
the
health
other thing is,
officer
if
for-
there's a real emergency, we now have paramedics almost full-time.
Right, and that's not really, I mean, although it's health officer, the things
Yeah.
that she's able to do by state statute, before a house is going to be condemned, if there is a living situation that, that someone makes a complaint about, let's just say, you know, I'm trying to think of the last time that we used her, a mold issue. I mean, she's brought in for situations like that. But like I said, I mean, we've only, I think, used her twice in probably 5 years.
Yeah, because the other issue was ducking.
It's only
Used her on
$100.
the tax acquired property that the town took, and we needed to condemn it.
And she has to sign off on that, so.
I would only question whether or not a nurse is credentialed to identify lethal home fungus or something like
No,
that.
it certainly doesn't hurt to pull
But
the
it's
statute and
it's
review it.
$100, which isn't very much, but you do get from the school department an actual nurse practitioner who's taken 3 years of extra postgraduate work in medicine.
I think what happens actually here is that in order to condemn, you have to go to court. And so she goes to court as an expert witness in that scenario. I do that sometimes for senate.
That's fine, but
That's how
if
that
they're
is.
using it for fungus, then she's not credentialed to do that. No nurses, regular RN.
All right, the next line is general assistance. We budget for $4,000 here. That number hasn't changed in many years. We did, so far, we've only had to use $736 of that, and I just want to really quickly run through the process so that you guys know how we're doing some of this. When someone comes to the town of Acton and it has some sort of need, whether it's food or oil or whatever the need may be, and they come to me, the very first thing we do is have them fill out an application for general assistance, okay? General assistance is, not only do we have the $4,000 appropriated by the town, but we get a portion of it reimbursed. So we always try, if somebody qualifies, to get them through the general assistance line. Unfortunately, with the numbers that are adopted by the state, if you don't have, you know, a half a dozen kids and have no income, it's not easy to qualify for general assistance. A lot of our elderly that have found themselves in heating crises, because there's only one or two in there, what they make for their Social Security, they're already over income. So before we give help to anybody, we always try to get them through general assistance first. Once they don't qualify for general assistance, we have our Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and we also have an account that people make donations to, a heating fuel account. So we usually go from general assistance, so they don't qualify there. If we have heating fuel assistance and it is a heating fuel issue, we'll pay it out of there. And then lastly, we go to our Neighbors Helping Neighbors, so.
Can that Neighbors Helping Neighbors be increased in any way? Can we make it more legal? Can we have books that are kept on it?
All the contributions to Neighbors Helping Neighbors, voluntary contributions?
Yes, and the checks are made out to the town of Acton, Neighbors Helping Neighbors. They go in there, it's one of our audited accounts. She keeps the books on that account like anything else. I mean, every time we give something, CM Brown sends a receipt. I mean, it's, you know, as clean as it can get. As far as the increase, we're not, I don't know how that would work as far as we're not a 501c3.
Well, I mean,
The town
is a nonprofit.
So wouldn't that cover it under a recipient of donations?
I mean,
Well,
yeah, if we
you have to
wanted.
be registered for a 501c.
And I mean, I'm not sure it's necessary to ask the townspeople for it. I mean, they're really good, especially as weather picks up and some of our, you know, getting people to round up their transactions. I mean, that 10, 20, 30 cents adds up. Right now, we have how much in there? I bet we have over over 3,000.
This is a fiduciary account, right? Or is it?
The Neighbors Helping Neighbors, yes.
Yes. I don't have that with me, but
I believe there's between $3,000 in there right now. I
And
mean,
just to clarify, the reason we've only spent 700 or so out of general assistance is because these people who are asking for assistance are overqualified.
correct.
So it has nothing to do with what Acton has made for decisions.
Right, no, right. I was just explaining that we try to pay out of the order that we try to pay out of.
And the general assistance is decided by Augusta?
Right.
The amount, yes.
And the requirements?
Guidelines,
Right.
yes.
Guidelines, yes.
Okay. So, I don't know, it seems to me that, as I mentioned the other day in the meeting of the Board of Selectmen, that things are going to get worse this year. I think everybody realizes it, and I think we should try to prepare as much as possible for that. And if we can expand Neighbors Helping Neighbors, if we can expand the donation to our only food pantry that I know of is the one behind me here, we ought to consider doing that for our citizens, because things are gonna get very bad by the end of this calendar year.
Now, if they do qualify for general assistance, how much do you actually get back, the town actually gets back, if they do qualify?
Reimbursement?
Roughly on an average.
I'm not sure what the rates are right now, but I want to say it was around 50%.
I thought it was 40, yeah, somewhere.
Somewhere between 40 and 50.
It's 12:30 and we have a funeral at 2 o'clock, or a goodly number of us do, and I have to shave and shower, so I'm going to excuse myself, but before I do, I would like to apologize to Jen if she's taking what I have said personally. It's certainly not my intent that this be personal. I appreciate everything you have done. I think you've done a world of good for the town, and as I said, I have no disagreement with what you said.
Then stop sending the emails that say differently.
Excuse me. I think it is to the benefit of you, and I think it's to the benefit of the town, that everybody understands what the position is, because there's been a lot of talk around town about it. And-
Yes, there has, hasn't it, Tom?
Right, right. And it's unnecessary. All we have to do is go to the town and say, boom, make it, and it's good protection for you too. That having been said, excuse me, I'm going to, go shave and shower.
Is there anything left on the budget to review?
There is, just a few things. There's animal control.
Oh, yes, we need to talk about that.
Leave us dispatch.
Animal control is, Department 10409.
See right here, hon. It's on page 3.
It's on,
Almost down below.
almost at the bottom.
So the salary is the 1.5?
Yeah.
Salary is 1.5% increase. No, it's under, they got their, it has its own department. Animal control.
Oh, under the fire chief. Yay.
Yeah.
The big increase that you see here, the mileage, animal welfare contract, all that's the same, is the miscellaneous education, lodging, equipment. That's to make sure that he has what he needs to be able to do the job, but there's also going to be the discussion with the Board of Selectmen, if they want to or plan to give him any type of reimbursement for a cell phone. I mean, unfortunately, this is that one job that, I mean, he have to have a phone. He has to have a phone. He can't call here if I don't have someone to call him. 24/7, they need to be able to reach him. So that's where the increase comes from, is the upcoming discussions that the board's gonna have. He figured adding a line onto his current plan, he would be happy with just like $20 a month reimbursement for that line. So it's a separate phone, it's a separate line. It becomes property of the town. It's open to freedom of information. Phones that, you know, I may use for work related all day long. I pay the bill, it's my phone. That's the difference, but.
Why?
Why what? Don't it? So that's his. That's why there's more of an increase in the 1.5. Any questions?
Hourly or?
It's a monthly stipend he gets. So whether he gets 10 calls or 35, he gets a flat stipend every month, and then he gets mileage, like all the other employees.
I have a question. Does animal control cover more than just taking care of dogs?
Animal control has to be domestic. That's inland fishery. Anything outside of a domestic animal is inland fisheries, and that's the state sets that, not us.
So it could be a pig or a horse
Or cow. We've chased all kinds of things.
Wild
all sorts of
turkeys?
pigs and.
Wild turkeys
Wild
do
turkeys?
not count.
But things like
I don't mean the liquid ones, I mean the,
No, I
even
know what you were
unusual
talking
pets
about.
like ferrets or things
Yeah,
of
if
that
they're
sort.
domesticated, they fall under him.
Domesticated under him,
Yep.
okay. So if you have somebody who gets say a skunk bite or a fox bite, that would go to
Inland fisheries.
inland fisheries.
And there are 3 or 4 local trappers in Acton as well, so if you have a coyote problem or a raccoon or something, our animal control officer has resources to head you in the right direction, because he's not supposed to deal with those.
I understand, thank you.
okay.
Any questions on animal control?
Nope.
Next is communications, 10430.
Dispatch.
The only increase here is dispatch by contract goes up 3% every year. So there's that $617. The $5,700 pays towards our repeater site, which is the tower that's attached to this building here. That is $125 a month. And also our dues into what is now called York County Emergency Communications Group. It used to be 14 Town Group. But all of the towers in York County that service York County are put together in one big fund, and we all pay a certain fee there, and that fee this year is $4,200.
42, 48, which is it?
It's 42.
I'm looking at the wrong
And,
page.
nope, so 42, plus the repeater
Oh.
is 57. And then the 4,800 is what we pay for the lease, that we have with the Ham family on Blueberry Hill to keep our tower there.
So Michelle, 104, 503-35, first line EMA, and the 14 town lease maintenance, that is what?
That is the repeater.
I know, I understand that.
For the
Now,
Southern
what's the
Maine.
amount? 57?
Yeah, 57, $4,200 of that goes to the York County Emergency Group.
Okay. You split it up and you confused me.
Now, is the 4,800 the total on the tower lease? I can't remember. And then
Yes.
you're reimbursed for part of that.
We are reimbursed for 1,200 of that from
Okay.
the York County Emergency. Next would be Emergency Management, 10440. This is for the EMA Director Stipend. That is the same and has stayed the same for many years.
Is this the local EMA or the county?
Local.
Who is it?
Bill
Yeah, who is
Catanzi.
our current EMA director?
Bill Catanzi.
So he maintains all of the certifications to have that position?
Yes. And they have monthly meetings at the
Okay.
county level that they have to attend, and when we're working with FEMA, he and I work together with FEMA, coordinating.
How many of those certifications is required for that position? The 300 course, the,
That I'm not sure of.
but he meets them,
Yes.
okay?
I don't think there are specific requirements per se to be an EMA director. I think you can appoint anybody, but he has to, part of the job would be going to these EMA meetings and trainings and so forth at the county level.
I'd sort of like to know if he has any of the credentialing in the federal programs. Is there a way to find that out?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'm sure the people at home can't either, but
I'm just wondering about the certification for the EMA director. And there are specific programs for emergency management that are available, and many big corporations and things of that sort require at least their executives in towns and counties to be certified in at least 3 of those national certification tests.
he
And I'm
does
just
work for the
wondering-
fire department. I'm wondering if some of
I don't
those-
know, that's why I said I'd
Yeah.
like to find out if he's certified in some of those, like the 300 course or the 400 course.
Yeah, I think the scope of it is more limited than what you're thinking of.
Okay.
I have a question on others in the county tax. There's a blank and a decrease of 301,000.
We just don't have a number.
We don't have a number.
We don't have a number, and they say we won't have a number until June. So
So you're.
So we're gonna put,
out of-
we're gonna put 3% on our warrant.
Say that again.
We're gonna put a 3% increase on our warrant, up to.
All right.
I think
That's
that
just
decrease
because
was
that
just
number's
because there was a formula in there to automatically
Right.
deduct or do the math. There's
Okay.
there's a math formula in there that recognized nothing and
Geez, I saw that.
it should, yeah, it should be crossed out.
Wouldn't
It
that
should be
be nice?
it should be a question mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after that, under others, which is the second to the last tab in your book, the second page, has special projects. We've talked about some of them through different departments.
Others.
Others.
Others. Not to be confused with others.
So, we talked about the transfer station parking lot. One of the things that the selectmen had proposed was painting the exterior of the fitness center. And I believe Jennifer got an estimate there from...
3. I got 3.
You got 3 estimates. For $6,500.
Average, yeah.
We talked earlier when Chief Johnson was here about the generator for the tower, the repeater at the back of the building here, for $8,800.
And that's an LP, right?
Yes. And it would tie into our existing tank.
Okay.
We've talked about the fire department. One thing that we did not talk about on the fire department was his request for a capital fund for his building or his grounds. He had initially requested $10,000 for that fund, to start a fund of such.
Is this a reserve fund?
Right. Based on his other more important needs, he agreed to drop that request down to $5,000 to start that fund.
Now, a new roof has been put on there already, is that
Yes,
correct?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
No. Want mine.
The forest management plan we talked about. The road association assistance, Elise could probably tell a little more about it. There is a copy of the proposed warrant article in here, in this section.
Forgive me, but I thought that was possibly going to be reduced to 75.
Well,
We
And that's-
asked them to go back and reduce it to 75, and they took a vote.
And this is kind of why we decided not to give you guys, not to have the warrant for today. So originally, the board looked at all these departments. And they looked at all these numbers and they said, okay, if we move forward with all of these special projects that you see here totaling $409,802, our tax rate is going to go up, let's say, a good 40 cents.
It's gonna go up anyway, Jim.
Well, I know, let me finish. 40, I mean, it could go up 40 to 50%, 40 to 50 cents based on this. And there's a couple other things that aren't listed here, but anyways. So what they did is they said to Michelle, okay, listen, we can't afford for it to go up more than 15 or 20 cents. We gotta get this number cut in half. We have to make some cuts. We can't present that much to the townspeople. So the selectmen, one of the things that they wanted to do was go back to the road association and say, listen, we're trying to help our tax rate here. Would you be okay with meeting us in the middle, and we'll move 75,000 forward this year. We don't even know if it'll pass, and we'll move another 75 next year. They said to the transfer station, hey, we might only pay half of that. Because when they look at cutting how much your tax rate is gonna go up, they have to cut these special projects or cut somewhere in here. So, Dr. Williams, to answer your question, when we sent that email asking them to cut it down to 75, they replied back that they just assume have it at 150. The selectmen haven't decided yet what they're gonna move forward and what they're gonna put on the warrant. I mean, we heard the road commissioners very clear this morning that they want you to put them on as presented. But those decisions haven't been made. So this book is just everything that's been presented.
I see.
And by Friday of next week, the board will have made some final decisions, and you'll have a warrant, and you'll see what they put on there.
And the capital improvement fund is basically looking at what as far as expenditures from that fund? Is there anything in particular?
So we have, for this current fiscal year, we have already approved to do $12,000 worth of siding. And in conversations with the board and workshops that we've had already about the budget, that hasn't been done yet due to
Okay.
timing and weather and so forth.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're not sure if that's going to be done by June or not. So to ask to do the next step in the project is kind of putting the cart before the horse, because
And the other question, you forgive my ignorance, I, as a somewhat newcomer, associate the bridges with the roads that they're on. Is this the Fox Ridge, Milton Mills, the Hopper, the Canal, or the Sanborn Road Bridge, this road?
Hopper.
I had to ask.
Huh?
I had to ask.
You're not a
David,
newcomer.
And it was.
Hopper, and that's the one that David spoke about earlier,
Okay. Harper Road, okay.
because they're in with their regular budget.
Okay. Are any of these, being covered by different funds that we've set up previously?
So the purchasing the truck for $85,000 would be.
That is covered, correct?
That would be used out of their capital fund.
Out of their truck. They have a specific fund for a
Right.
fire truck, right?
Exactly.
That's why I
And
was
that's what
asking.
they want to take that money out.
Right.
Yes.
Which I think is exorbitant.
Right.
I don't think
And they don't need a damn plow.
No.
So, well, I was gonna say, we're on camera, we don't have the full board, but that's one of the other discussions that the Board of Selectmen have, is that they may move an article forward to allow to expend $50,000, maybe for something a year or two older, or without a plow, or without this or that. So those are the conversations the board's supposed to be having next week. Just because the numbers are here doesn't mean they're gonna move that forward.
I understand that.
And we have spent money from the capital improvement fund, or we have appropriated it anyhow, it hasn't been spent yet. But it's been a while since we've put any money back in. So we had kind of split the difference between the fire department, where he wanted to start a new fund. He wanted to put in at least $5,000. We would put $5,000 into the town capital improvement fund.
How much is in there now? After the appropriation that you've already,
28,000.
28 left?
Yes. So that doesn't leave a lot for anything really.
Furnace is what we're worried about.
Yeah, the furnace is
Now,
going
what's-
to need replaced.
What does the fire chief want a capital improvement fund for grounds and building? We already have he already has a fund for building maintenance.
I have not received any information from him on that, so
And
that maybe that could
grounds.
be a question that could be asked,
Follow up.
when you
I'd be
follow
more
up.
than happy to ask him. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's not high on my list of favorite people.
Okay.
All right, anything else in the budget book that we haven't discussed?
The very last tab is social services.
Social.
And what you're seeing here are the numbers that came from the social service. So again, the selectmen have not decided if they're going to put the $74,988 on the warrant. What they have decided is that each article is going to be individual, like it was last year, because remember a few years ago at town meeting, we had them all in one article, and people were trying to move money, let's say, from Red Cross to the fire, to the food pantry. So how we set it up last year is that every one is its own article. So you can decide how you feel about the food pantry, and go on to the next article, so that they're individual.
Basically, so it's up
But we
or
don't
down.
know what numbers are gonna be moved forward yet, that's up to the board.
I would ask that we put a limit, whether it's a dollar limit or whatever.
Well, they're all within the 1.5 that the board asked for. They met, the original memo that went out to them was that, we want you to stay within 1.5.
I think what Dr. Williams is saying is that he would like to see a limit put on the total number that we allot to social
Exactly.
services or nonprofit organizations.
So if you look at this, in
Does the
2000.
town want to expend $74,000 or whatever? that
mean, in
summation
15,
is?
we were at
I don't think we ought to
65,000.
increase anything from previous year. 1.5 even it comes out, somewhere in the range of $4,000 or $5,000. I think that ought to go for a food pantry, as far as I'm concerned. Everybody ought to be exactly what they were last year, with the exception of some things that are going to help our citizens during this very difficult year and the years to come in maintaining themselves. And I would urge that at least the Board of Selectmen consider that when they do their consideration next week.
And if they're
And
gonna
the board-
increase anything, make it the food pantry.
Yes.
Well, and just so it's clear, the social services have reached out wanting to know if the selectmen or the Warren and Finance, anybody wants to meet with them, they're willing to do that. So just put that out there.
There's no new ones on this list. They're all the same.
No, so
There are no new
what
ones.
so what we've told them is at this point, they haven't requested you. I mean, you figure you have two with increases. You have Southern Maine Agency on Aging that went up $100. You have the Trafton Center that went up
And
$200.
those didn't actually go up. Because,
They requested,
and like, the Historical Society last year requested $2,000.
oh, the request, so
We
these are the
only-
same
yeah,
amount
we only-
requested.
Right.
And we didn't give them the 2,000, we gave
Right.
them
Right.
2,000.
Southern Maine Agency on Aging, their request was increased.
Now, can you give us a copy of what they actually got last year?
Yep.
Is there any
It's
possible-
there.
It's on here.
It's there.
It's there, so what they actually got is there, FY18.
And then the 19 what they're requesting. And she also put all the letters behind it, all their supporting documents. But you guys can talk about that within your workshop.
I can give you what they requested last year, is probably what you want, yeah.
Dr. Williams, are you still on that social service page?
Yes, ma'am.
If you look at, let me put my glasses back on, number
there, Kim.
74.
Number
Yeah.
74, yes.
You had asked me last week, we talked a little bit about health services and not.
For mental health, for mental
This is the
health.
one that's in Springville, it is still running. I know you thought that there wasn't anything like right close.
For
by.
mental health.
Yes.
Yes, for outpatient. But the only inpatient one is in Portland.
Okay, so that's what it was.
That was the one. But no, it's mental health, it's food.
Do they do food there?
No, these are the things, and healthcare. And maybe we're not giving enough to Nasson, because I think Nasson is the closest thing we have to allow people who don't have any money to get whatever healthcare they need in Sanford. And whereas our people are certainly using it, and I just think we ought to be helping these agencies, because they're not going to get a lot in the future from the feds, and we're going to have an increased need. And again, some of these things, you know, even the lake associations, we should consider just cutting them down by 1 or 2% in order to help pay for some of these other things where people actually need something. I'm all in favor of clean water and protected lakes, but, you know, we can just shave a little bit off of some of these things and put it to some real physical and mental needs of our citizens.
The paperwork that follows these explains more what they want and why.
What the organizations do.
Yes.
Yes.
It's what they submitted, yeah.
It's the same thing that
What they did last year, basically.
So once we give you the warrant next week, you guys can schedule your meetings and
Yes.
start divvying through and let us know what questions you have or who you want to see, and
Yes.
I'll help you organize that.
Good.
Get it posted.
The only other questions I have is, I'm not going to vote in favor of a summer plan for the road commissioners unless they give project lists. We're wrong to give them a bulk handout of monies without any asking for specifications as to how they plan on doing their thing. Mr. Mooney has said he won't come to us if we ask him to come to explain. And I don't know, I think Mr. Winchell, I don't know whether he will come or not, but I would ask the Board of Selectmen to assist and support us in that same effort. We've done this for many years, just giving them a block grant.
Can I ask one more thing of the girls, if they're willing? We mentioned York County for insurances. Is there any possible way you can give us a rough estimate? I'm not saying a hardcore, but even within 3 to 5%, if you can get a hold of them, if it would work better or not, or what they're looking at?
As far as?
As far as the cost of insurance, without calling county, is there any way to get a rough estimate?
We can find out what they're paying,
Percentage?
what they're paying now,
Yeah.
absolutely, that's all
Because
public
that way,
information.
because, like I said, I'm not for or against, but I'd like to see what they're gonna offer to offset maybe Scott and David, or whoever becomes that position.
we're gonna end up insuring the whole damn town.
Maybe, you never know.
All right, are we good, Elise? Most of us are.
Motion
Yes.
to adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Good night, or good, whatever.
Good afternoon.
Weekend.
We've been here quite